Hey guys, Jeff here, and in today's video I'm transforming this old ugly bathroom into a modern home spa. I'm going to take you through the whole process step by step, including the plans, my materials, and the tools I used. If you hire a contractor for this type of renovation, it probably cost you around 25,000 bucks. But I finished this bathroom for about 7 grand because I did it myself. You can do it too. Let's get started. All right, time to make a hole for inspection. Let's see what we can see here. Well, that explains why we had mice in here. That's an actual hole right to the outside. Well, hopefully that scared off any of those poisonous snakes that are lurking around Florida. Red and yellow kill a fella?
Yeah, black and yellow.
Thanks for reminding me. Thanks. Where I come from, if it rattles, you worry about it. All right, the good news is we have CPVC water supply with 1/2-inch thread. And so I can take off this faucet riser and then just throw a cap on that and leave that plumbing intact for now. And then we can sort out how we're going to integrate that plumbing into the wall. Right? That's not a big concern. So at least tonight we can finish the rest of the demo and be able to turn the water back on. That'll be key. All right, because, you know, we still need to use the toilet around here while we're working. So my goal here is to just cut a V so that I remove the tub from the drain. I'm not familiar with this tub installation. We'll get that sorted out in another part of the video. Okay. Now I'm going to cut it in half. I think I'm cutting through a mortar bed. Let's just we'll finish cutting down through all this empty cavity. Pull the trims, remove the screws, and then we'll be able to snap it and fold it in half. My original plan was to install a walk-in tub for seniors who plan on aging in place. That was my target demographic for my resale. Well, that didn't work out for budget and timeline reasons due to supply chain issues, so I went with a freestanding soaker tub design instead. Having a plan is important when you're renovating, and no matter how much I preach, don't change your plan, sometimes the plan changes you. Okay. We'll just grab a wrench and we'll disengage that. Knowing that these are all going to be screwed into the frame all the way around. These are all structural elements. If you remove first, it'll make the whole removal process a lot easier. Oh, great. Ugh. Okay, how are we doing? Loving it. All right, might as well remove it right from here. Okay. That makes you feel good. It was a quarter turn to come hand tight. That's awesome. No burst line. It's a good point considering we're like under a house. Now there's always going to be a little bit of water in the line when you empty it. It's because you're not creating a siphon. You're just emptying it from the point of the faucet deck. Don't be concerned. A little bit of water can always dry out. That is fine. And I'll have lots of time to run to the store and get the right thread, and we'll get that sealed up too. Wow. Okay, all kinds of nesting going on. Yeah, it may have been a small raccoon. Because turds that big, I mean, I've seen rat poop. And it's usually rat poop is this, right? That big. Okay, so since we're planning on moving this, we're just gonna go like this. Such a simple drain assembly system. Okay, and we'll move this. There we go. Okay, all done. Yeah, there's no water in that drain. That's what air conditioning does. All right, guys. Well, listen, here, that's nice and solid still, eh? That's amazing. up against the outside of the house. The soft spots are right here. Yeah, it's just nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cut back here. And you see this staple line, these things right here, and this chalk line, that represents the middle of a joist. So I'm going to cut about 1.25 inches away from that. And then what that'll do is that'll expose part of the joist, and then I can laminate another piece of lumber there to then integrate the new subfloor. My plumbing here, both are coming from this direction. Do some kind of a 90 on a weird angle, and then end up the spaghetti contraption here. Not a big fan. So we're just going to put a new elbow on, bring it straight up. And we're going to have to buy a tub filler that's going to have to be framed in and boxed in at some point. Running in circles a little bit, but you got to know the end before you start. So until I got an actual plan, I got no business starting anything. So here we go. Let's cut this open and have a look. Where it's nice and soft. Just shouldn't be that easy. Okay. That was what I was afraid of. And here's my T, here's my vent, and this is the drain pipe, okay? And it goes all the way across here underneath this floor and then comes over. Now, I have lots of room on top of that before the joist. I got about 1.25 inches, so I have lots of slope available. So what I want to do is open this up, and I get cut that pipe around here with a 90, and then bring it over here to the center and put my P-trap on it. Okay? We're just going to go with that. Let's make sure our drain hits this spot right here. Okay, so from the wall, it's going to be 38 and 23, okay? So we got to write this down somewhere where we can't lose it. So we're going to create a little template right here on my wall, all right? And we're going to go 38 and then 23, okay? That's where we're going to put our P-trap. That's some quality subfloor right there. All right, so for today, I'm gonna get the plumbing in the right spot. That's the job at hand. I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm gonna double up my rim joist here so that I can actually cut out the rest of this board and integrate a brand new piece of 5/8 right on top of all of this. That'll be the best plan for the best success moving forward. Anyway, looks like I've got lots of access, no obstruction here for running my plumbing. That is fantastic. Okay. Now, I was really hoping that my pipe was coming down the middle and then teed off to go to the vent. Instead, it's way over there. So, I have to do is try to save an extra elbow that's already in the system today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right here so that I can turn this pipe in the direction that I want it. Okay, but I have to take into account 23 inches off this wall, which is about here, right? Yeah. So let's mark that spot. And we'll think about what we're doing here. So when I cut that pipe, the center of this joint becomes right where I want to go. I'm going to reach in. I'm going to go back. Now, I gotta go with 2 hands here. I think I'm gonna mark this left-handed. That's where the center of the pipe is. If you're not sure what's going on, you can use the printing on the pipe as your mark. Okay, so I wanna mark that spot so I can go over the pipe. So there's my center. That takes me to this right there. Okay, So first we'll cut that. We'll get this pipe out, trim it back, and that'll give me an elbow with some pieces on it that I can turn into the bottom of my P-trap. There we are. There we go. So this is what I'm talking about. That is a nice sweeping 90. And if I cut it, I'll have enough pipe there to attach to the next fitting. All right. Now let's get in here, clean this pipe out, get it reamed out. Okay. Now we're gonna start with the primer on the pipe, obviously, and obviously on this. Okay. There we go. We'll put it down there. Nice. We'll bring it in. A little bit of an upward slope. Just a touch of an upward angle here so that when we get to here, everything's flowing downhill. I want to get that 1 degree in. Now, if I can remember correctly, I needed a coupling, which I bought. I need pipe to bring it out to here. And when I stick on my proper huge P-trap, we want this to end up at this line and about 23 inches off the wall. That's about here. So I'm gonna have to make that minor adjustment there. Good. I also bought a tub that is a 59 inch. And instead of going to the full extent, I want to leave room so there's a gap on each end and in and around the back, just for the sake of cleaning and installation. It makes everything easier, right? All right, so here we go. We're just gonna stick on our fittings and we're gonna pipe all this up now, okay? And remember, you need to prime and use the glue, or the solvent, sorry. Every joint, every pipe, everywhere, every time. All right, here we are. There we go. Let's stick that in. Oh, it's wanting to come out. I don't know, it's fighting with me there. Let's get that. A few seconds to bond. Making sure that you have a bit of a slope here, right? Very important that the water is running in the right direction coming off your P-trap. Okay, so now if I go straight on from there, I'm in decent shape. Prime, prime, and prime. Adhesive, adhesive, and adhesive. Probably saying that wrong. I'm not used to working with CPVC though. It's a big surprise, eh? Here we go. There we go. And wherever that is, that's going to be where the tub goes. I need to add support to this pipe, and I can't put framing underneath it, so I'm going to go grab some all-round. Because when we come back later on, I'm going to be installing this. Is we've got this rubber gasket thing here that this tailpipe goes through, okay? So we're going to measure off finished flooring from here right into that P-trap, okay? Attach this to the floor, and what this will do is this will create us a perfect spot for our tub spout, right? It slides right in here, goes through a rubber gasket, everything is nicely sealed. It also makes it really easy because we don't have to open up the floor or crawl in the crawl space afterwards. So this is a great invention. Beautiful. Okay. Now, I'm just going to tack the floor down today so that I'm not tripping on it. And then we are going to probably need to open this up again so that I can help clean up underneath. Got to cut some strapping and stuff. It'll make that whole removal a lot easier. Okay, here we go. Now, all right, time to cut the water lines, I guess. Okay, I'm just gonna cut enough that I can get the next piece of plywood in so we can measure for the tub location, and then we'll worry about how this is run. Okay. Here we go, guys. Just a quick note, when you're cutting plywood, try to always cut a factory edge to meet a factory edge. It just always fits so much nicer. There we go. Now, because we're bringing the tub base in, we're going to just toss a couple screws in here. Flatten out that warp, okay? Now, just for you guys at home, this is my joist here. All right, and I got another one here. So, now what we want to do is we're going to grab the tub. This is the product. First thing we want to do, let's get the clicker out of here. We're going to need to be able to see where the center line is for this drain. There we go. Okay. Brass parts, this is awesome. We're also going to be showing you how to integrate this kind of a flange system, because we can put a pipe extension on the bottom of that tub that just drops right in there. Okay, so when you're done your surface of your floor, we're going to show you how to think from the end to the beginning so that you can install this flange and then bring over your tub and just drop it in. The fitting that goes in here is a rubber gasket, so it's guaranteed waterproof, and it's very, very easy for somebody to drop this in if you have somebody giving you a hand, all right? Want to make a nice big black mark representing roughly where center is here. We're going to give ourselves about a 1/2 inch mercy with the location of the tub. You want to spin around, get your overflow on the back. It's pretty, might as well be visible when you walk in the room. And now we just got to move this around until we can see that mark. Where am I here? All right, and there we go. Now that's in there nice and square, but might I consider this? I have a little extra space around here, and I'm building a custom vanity. So because I'm doing that, I think I'm gonna go on an angle. I was talking to my wife the other day about this. She likes the idea of having something like that. It's more welcoming, and it leaves you room back here to throw in one of those little black ladders with shelves on it, so you can store your towels and your Epsom salts and all that kind of jazz, right? About the water supply, so what we have to take a look at is feasibility, because right now I'm on a joist and that's not very feasible. I could bring it over here, but I'm starting to get in the way of getting in and out. I could bring the faucet to that location. That might look odd. Coming off the back there, it looks kind of nice. I'm making a custom counter cabinet here, so 6 feet is to this line. That'd be too big. We'll go something here so that you can actually step in between comfortable. We'll go 18 inches off the wall. Yeah, so there's not going to be, there won't be a point here of, let me just show you. If that's my vanity, that's nice and comfortable for access. You gotta get in behind there to clean whatever else. I think I'm going to go with this. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just the location of those 3 mounts there. We'll take all this back, put it where it's safe, and we'll work with just this fitting to discover our hole. And this is a great cheat. Okay. There we go. Is that even on the center line? That's on the center line. Oh boy. I'm going to change my location. All right. But I realized that that was not my center line on the tub. And that would look really stupid in the tub. So I put this back together and changed it. Wow, that was a close one. Here we go. That is much better. Now I got to get this out of here. Back to storage for you, honey. No, that's okay. Best part about these tubs is it is a one-man operation. All right. Oh. Okay. Now, because there's holes, I can actually see right down through here, so I know where my drill bit tip is going to go. So you can be very exact. I'm going to change it off the hammer onto screw. Okay. Now what you want to do is get it started. Get a bit of a roll going, okay? That makes the hole just a hair wider than the bit, so it doesn't jam up. All right. How to use a hole saw, 101. I'll show you how good the system is. Now, because we're cutting through plywood, there's resins, right? And you're going to get a buildup on the teeth, and that helps to cause the overheating. So, we just take this off, pop the pins, and then good as gold. Now, we need another one for over here. We need 1.25 inches, but no bigger than 1 3/4 inches. You want to know where the center of the hole is? Just put a plus through, and then you know where to put your drill bit. When I say that do this to wiggle, I'm not pushing down at all. It's just sitting here. There we go. Done and done. This is a great opportunity. You can measure off the wall, and we can actually measure these marks. So we could put a 2x4 across here and across here. Okay, so that when you screw down through the tile, you hit plywood and framing. And that's an option, and that'll give you a lot more strength. You don't want to just go into the tile with a tile plug. And 5/8 plywood isn't bad, but if you got an opportunity to put a little framing in, I say take it, okay? Even putting a block here. Hit all 3 of these dots. So, I've got some that's in the way. Good. Let's get that. We're going to cut a couple of blocks here, get the blocking done. A couple of 15s. 2 at 15, 1 at 3. Okay. So when I look down through the hole, I see 2 water lines, and then they both elbow across, and then they're both coming up. So that's half of what I want. So I'm going to just make my cuts about 8 inches below, just underneath the floor joist. Run it back over to where my 17 is, and then straight up. So I've got these 2 water lines here, they're coming across and then coming up. That's half of my C shape. So now I want to cut down here, about 8 inches below the top. Bring it across, elbow up to my point, which is about here, 17 inches. Remember, my water line is around this location here, okay? I'm going to use this template at 15.5. Okay, so right around here, 17 by 15. That's the goal. Let's see if we can pull this off. And it's already got a pretty good flex in this line, right? There we go. There we go. I'm gonna get that water out. Woohoo! There goes more of that floor. So when it's down here, that's the lowest point in the whole building. So I force this down, and all the extra water will come out. Now I can be plumbing with a dry surface. There we go. That's much better. This is my measurement of the center of the hole. 17.5, and then 15.5 coming this way, okay? This will help me to visualize roughly where that hole is when I'm measuring my pipe. All right, so let's just do one at a time here. We're gonna bring this one from its current resting position. We're gonna go about 11 inches on that pipe, okay? And then it's going to be about there. We're going to go 11 inches twice. This one is going to come across about 8 inches and then up about 8 inches. Yeah, it's easy math. And like I said, because of all the flexibility in these lines, because they're laying underneath the structure and they're not run through the structure, this makes my life easy. If yours is coming through structure, then using this extra snake option is going to be brilliant, and it'll make a world of difference to you. Now, let's just get a couple of marks on this. 11. And these are just real rough divots, right? 11, 8, and 8. Remember, we're just getting close. I have so much flexibility. Here we go. Not the tool of choice, but I wasn't going to go out and buy all my plumbing tools while I'm down here in Florida. And this is how we're going to finish it. The plumbing store I was at, it doesn't have the greatest selection of fittings, so I've got a 1/2 inch for the water line, and it converts to a 1/2 inch male thread. And then I've got to buy this, which goes from 1/2 inch male thread to 3/8 male thread, so that'll receive the water line. And I've also got 3/8 caps. We'll connect all this for you so you can see how this works. There you go. If you ever have problems with these cans, this tool makes you stronger than 10 men. This is just nuts. That was And might I suggest even wearing some nitrile gloves while you're working with this primer? It is messy stuff. Okay, so we're just... Don't ask me about the science on this stuff. I don't know. I just know that you need it. We're not plumbers. We're DIYers. We just need to do it right. And this is why you want to wear the gloves, because it stains your fingers. I also have to prime my pipe down in here. We have a street shutoff valve here, and there's just a little bit of a trickle of water coming through. This is the water meter box. When I came out, it was filled with sand right to the top, and there was a frog sitting in here. Is this point right here? This is the on-off shutoff valve, and you can use your hand to turn that. It's pretty stiff. So even though I empty that line out, it's full again. So I'm going to assemble all these pipes. I'm going to give it a good shake, dry it, prime it, solvent, get it put together real quick. So that was the 11s. Let's do this now. Okay. Okay. And one other thing. With CPVC, the joint tends to want to push back. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. Oh, hang on. Make sure we get our angle right, because that's going to come across. There we go. And then we're going to go up. Okay, that one is prepped. There we go. Okay, good. Next one. It's all quite tedious and boring, isn't it? Just think through your angles. Try to keep them in line. Right? So you're not putting them together like that. You want to keep them always moving somewhat square. If you think square, then you better glue square. Okay. There we go. We gotta shake that line. Okay. We're gonna lift it up. Get our solvent on here. Our solvent in the joint. Yeah, figures, eh? I'm way too tall. Yep. Just broke that off. Yeah. What I need is a 90. Darn it. But the store was out. Can you believe that? Okay. There's two ways to do this. This will work. There's a 90. So what I need is 2 couplings, and those I have. Come prepared. All right, so as a DIYer, remember, you're gonna run into situations where you made your pipe too long or too short or whatever. So whenever you're buying plumbing, always buy couplings. A fancy way to remember it is, it's for joining 2 pieces of pipe together, okay? So you can cut, you can use old fittings, you can do all kinds of stuff if you have this rig. Now, if I come on there with a 90, that's probably the perfect spot. I'm going to cut both of these pipes. I'm going to cut this one back a little bit more. I wasn't really thinking that was just a little too long. Here's the second leg. Prime a couple of these. Oops. That water line is really dripping. What a pain in the butt. Okay, there, new elbow. There's nothing like recycling, eh? Okay. Now, let's see if we can get in here. Get this empty long enough to get this on. All right, solvent. Okay. Now we're in and we're above. Loving it. This one's easier because I've had the hot water tank off for weeks and we actually drained it. So, it also means it's really easy for me to identify what's hot and cold. If you're not sure, run your water supply with the hot water line on first to guarantee it. Because you don't want to hook up plumbing up to the wrong temperature water, because then all your fixtures are going to run backwards. Because they didn't sell 1/2-inch pipe to 3/8. They make you want to spend almost $10 worth of fittings to get the job done. Congratulations, Home Depot, you got me today. We're taking our thread sealant here, putting it on the mill threads. And I know this is actually really quite overkill, but at the same time, I'm not going to be going under there. Nobody wants to go under there to fix a leak if you have one. And how are you going to find out? Except your water bill will be huge. So let's just take the time right now to get that on nice. Snug. What in the hell just happened there? Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. That one's not working? What? Oh, there's 2 kinds. Oh, Lord. There's 2 different kinds of fittings. Wow. There's another trip to the store. There's another trip to the store. Wow. 2 kinds of fittings. Okay. You got me again. Yeah, that's all right. Like I said, the hot water line isn't even on. So for right now, I'm not going back to the store. I'm just putting on my test cap. Well, not test cap. This is a brass cap. Okay. We're going to grab a couple wrenches and give it all this a nice bit of tighten. This is where adjustable wrenches are worth their weight in gold. Lots of leverage. And a good compression fitting requires compression. All right. There we go. That's done. Now we want to put in our framing, then we can close up the subfloor finally. Hey guys, Jeff here, and today I'm going to show you everything I know and love about the Schluter Ditra membrane. This product is an uncoupling membrane for tile and is an effective waterproofing system for your bathroom as long as you install it correctly. If you follow the steps I've laid out in this video, you should have no problem achieving success with your project. Cheers. Okay, so step one when you're doing a project like this, you have to realize that it's all about the integrity of the laminating process of the Ditra to the plywood. So, in order to have any integrity, we've got to have clean, right? Free of dust, free of dirt. And generally speaking, when you're at this point of the construction, you want to be at a point where your drywall is finished and taped. And then you got to clean up your mud. I don't know anybody who puts down floor protection over their subfloor when they're doing drywall. It just doesn't ever seem to happen. So you got to get rid of all the chunks, obviously. Right, there we go. I know this job is a little bit, well, here we go, broken off blade. Let's go. Next blade. I know that this job is a little bit out of sequence, and that's because we have videographers on site twice a week while I'm working. So traditionally, what you'd see here is sanded, ready drywall, probably even primed, right? You don't start tiling until you're ready to tile. And in a lot of projects, tiling doesn't need to be done until your walls are even painted, right? You don't have to be in a hurry to put the tile on the floor. It's something that you want to protect. So try to organize your project to a point where you're not working on top of your flooring after you put it in. I am doing things a little bit backwards. We're not just washing the floor, okay? We're not trying to open the pores of the wood or anything like that. What we're trying to do is add just a little bit of moisture to the surface of this plywood so that it doesn't suck the moisture out of the thin set too fast. And the best way to do this is to just lay it out and then cut it to fit the room. And then we'll worry about the details in a second. Okay, now it has these great little squares. So I want to go right up to here because this is the curb for my shower. Here's trick number one. Know where your curb is, okay? My curb is about here. So we're going to finish right on this spot, okay? So that's my mark, okay? So here's my mark, all right? And I want to cut this, but I don't want to cut everything underneath. So I just put my fingers on each end, okay? And I'm going to just set the roll back. So now my cut line is right here. Use my favorite knife. This is an Olfa knife. It's not available in every hardware store, but you can get it on Amazon, no problem. Next day on Prime. Do yourself a favor and get it, because there's other copycats out there, so the blades are available anywhere you go. And nobody's paying me to say that. Alrighty, so now we have the length of the room. So, it's okay to use a marker here. You got to be able to use your brains a little bit in a situation like this. We're going to be underneath the vanity here, okay? So there's nobody walking. So we don't have to be worried about having it cut perfectly. Like, this is not the time for laser precision. Okay, we're looking at this, 4.5, 7.5, okay? So I'm gonna make that mark. Feel free to draw on this. That's why we have these markers. They're amazing. 2 to 4. Okay, 2 to 4. And we're gonna go from here, roughly here, to roughly here. Okay, and I'm just putting the tape up next to the fixture, okay, and then I'm going to an extra 1/2 inch. Because these are set up so that we can bring it through the base of the cabinet, I can set all this directly on top. Now, sit, okay, Just cut it with a knife. You can also use scissors with this product. If you prefer scissors, that's fine. This is from my water supply for my faucet. I have a tub filler. Remember, we're going to be putting a soaking tub in this corner. All right, so I'm coming out here at 8.5. I'm going to go here, and then here. All right. Now, whenever you're working with products like this, remember, when you're doing tile work, you want to get about a 90% bond, okay? 90% is the goal. The reason we don't go for 100% as a goal is because you'll never achieve it. We're dealing with building materials that have variance and waves, and even in the manufacturing, the plywood can be thicker and thinner in places, right? So don't beat yourself up trying to be perfect. You just want to get as close as possible to perfect, and that's perfect, all right? This is actually here on purpose so I can pull my water lines through later. I'm going to have to work around this. All right, there we go. So we're going to dry fit this. This is going to be a problem. Just this little hiccup. You see how it is bumpy? So I need to trim this back just a hair, and I don't want to be cutting towards myself. All right, so there we go. That's done. Next key. Take your marker, mark your line on the floor, all right? Because when you go to put this back, and when you're adding your thin set, you don't want to make a mess. You can add the thin set just where this goes, because now you're going to have a mark on the floor. You've got parameters working. It's like coloring inside the lines. Now we're going to do the same with the next piece. Okay, that's perfect as far as the length is concerned. Is we don't want to cut the edge here. We want to have the factory edge against the factory edge. You can see the edge through here, okay? So here's the edge underneath. 1, 2, 3.5 squares, all right? So I'm going to come up here to this wall, and I'm going to measure back 1, 2, 3.5 squares, okay? And I'm going to take even a little bit more off. I'm going to go to 4 squares. Remember, whenever you're doing tile, you're going to have some sort of a base trim to cover the gap. So your tile doesn't even go all the way to the wall. So feel free to give yourself a little bit of room to work with. We'll take out 4 over here. And because it's Dieter, like I said, you just follow that line. Now, because I've got a water supply here, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cut it on the ground. Now we're going to deal with the toilet and the water supply. My flange is actually lower than my plywood right now. So I'm going to need a flange extension kit at a later date. So what I want to do is I want to mark here where that is. I want to mark here where this is, because I can see that through the back side. Not a bad trick, eh? There's the front. Okay, so there's my 4 corners. Okay, now count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. 11, okay? So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about here is the middle. Here's the trick. Put your pinky on that spot, make your mark right there, and use your hand like a protractor. And like I said before, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get as close to perfect as possible. But at least what that'll do is that'll keep you from making a monstrosity of a hole. All right? There. Now, that's not incredible, but it's not terrible. The toilet gets attached to the flange extension, and then the weight of the toilet goes out the front and around the rear, okay? So that's really where you want to be having that perfect. Now here, we're just going to cut that 2 inch by 2 inch. Give or take here. And I know there's people at home watching this video right now going, wow, that's a lot of hole. Don't you lose the integrity of the tile? No, 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 no. This is an uncoupling membrane. We put the tile over top of this, we cut the tile a little bit more exact, okay? And honestly, at the end of the day, where you want to have perfect bond is where you're walking. No one is putting 200 pounds of pressure right here next to that water supply. We're gonna mix our thin set, and if necessary, we'll wet the floor again. But now we're just gonna roll this up, take it out of the room, and be ready to bring it back in to lay it in our cement. Yeah. And if you're wondering, the blue tape on the string, because that's the cold line. All right, always mark your hot or your cold. If you got electrical tape, it works out really well for marking the hot line. Okay, so here's our setup. We're gonna mix some cement now. I've got a really cheap drill, okay? It's just a corded VSR drill, so I've got a chuck on it. That's great. The mixing blade, get a paddle like this with the 4 sides that are square, okay? For the reason is, we're gonna be putting in water and then adding our thin set material to the water. And it's a packed dry powder, and it's been stored on pallets, okay? And it gets dry clumps. This breaks up all the chunks. If you get the auger style, you'll be mixing forever and it won't break up the chunks. It'll just set up this cute little swirly pattern inside your pail. And then you'll start troweling it out and you'll have dry chunks everywhere. And that's an enemy here because you don't want to have dry spots. Dry spots mean you don't have the right kind of moisture. And the thin set we're using here is called modified. Now, Schluter, I don't know what, 10 years ago? They came up with this product. It's called All Set. It basically means you can't screw it up. It really should say Schluter, you can't screw it up, okay? If you're using their product in any scenario, this product works. It's a combination of both. Problem solved, okay? It's just a bag of cement. You're gonna go spend 10 bucks more than you would have, but you can't make a mistake, so I'm gonna recommend this product. I've got like about an inch of water in here, okay? And that's nice. Now, because of this drill, it's a trigger control, it's sensitive, so I'm gonna try not to wear this. Now, I only put in a little bit of powder just to get started, and I'll tell you why. One of the most common mistakes people make is they put in too much powder in the beginning, and the water that was put in that pail first is designed to make sure that you don't get big chunks of the product stuck in the corner at the bottom of the pail. Okay, so if you put in just a little bit, you can create a mixture of cement and water, okay? And that will set you up for success. Now you have an idea of how much more you got to put in. You can pour it into the middle, pour it on the top. It's not going to just drop into the bottom of the pail into that inside corner and cause you problems later. Now we're going to mix all this together, and that's going to be dry. Okay, this is a great teaching moment. That's too dry, because it's shaky, okay? Now, it's too dry. This is actually really good for stalling the tile, and I'll show you why. When you run your finger through it, it should hold its ridge. That's good for tile, because what you want is a ridge. You want to travel a series of ridges that you can collapse. But with this product, you don't want it to do that. You want it to be a little thinner, because we want to be able to force this into the surface of the cement, of the plywood, sorry. We want to force this through the fleece a little bit to get a good bond. So we're going to just add a little bit more water. Yeah, you see how the ridges are collapsing. That's perfect for putting down the Ditra. So before you get started, make sure you buy all the right tools. You see that? It says Schluter Ditra on it, okay? It's engineered to be the right gap size. You're going to need a rubber float, okay? I'll show you how to use this in a minute. Right here. All right, now, best advice out there for now, use the flat side of the trowel, okay, and press this stuff in, okay? I'll show you why. Let me clean it off. You see all the little thin set in all those little grooves? All that texture, okay? Plywood is not perfectly smooth. It's not like glass. And you want to force it in there, okay? That's the finish. We want directional troweling, but we want it like that. We don't want to scrape it clean, okay, right? You want to put it on there and smooth it clean so that you have 100% coverage on that plywood and you have ridges there to push through the fleece. That's really the whole process. And we trowel it lightly enough that we can't see the plywood. That's all there is to it. Now I know there, not enough product. Okay? And that's what it's all about. All right. Now, thin set. My God, the bane of my existence. I'm gonna try to color in the lines here a little bit. Now when I'm slamming this on the ground, I'm taking all this content and I'm trying to force it to the bottom of the trowel. So then I got something I can comb with, right? Yeah, now. So, let's finish this. So let's bring in the product. I'm going to show you how to roll that out and lay it in place. I'm going to lay that over there, roughly where it goes. Okay? And I'm going to put this corner where my black marks are. Okay? And then I'm just going to pull this straight on my black marks. And then lay it on my strings. All right? Take your float and now gently press it in. Okay? This is just to flatten everything out. All right, now, over here, because of this little bump, I'm just gonna use my fingers, okay? And I'm gonna just flatten that out myself. All right, and that extra material, we're actually gonna get rid of. There we go. Always have a sponge in the water next to your work site, you can stay clean. This stuff shouldn't stay on your skin all day long, okay? Now we're going to check our adhesion on the product, okay? So we take the corner, we lift it up. Now, you can see that I'm dry on the edge, okay? I actually don't have enough thin set in that corner, all right? And I still have ridges that haven't been collapsed all over the place. This is not bonded, okay? And this is why they made that machine with the rollers, because people go gentle. Now, this is the traffic area. I can't afford to not have good bond here. So we're gonna overdo it. This is how I want you to bed this product down. 2 hands and you lean on it, okay? So you put it down gently first. And now we want you to put your weight into the sucker. Okay, like you're trying to squeeze it out. Because you're not gonna squeeze it out. What you're gonna do is you're gonna force it into that fleece. And you're gonna get an amazing bond. Pay attention to the edges, okay? And you want to really run that sucker. This is a good aerobic workout, let me tell you. Oh. That's why they call this work. Now we're going to check our bond. That's what proper coverage looks like the stucco, okay? If you don't have the stucco, your thin set might have been too dry, or you didn't use enough weight to put it down. All right? Once you got it where you like it, you can take your trowel and clean up all the edges, okay? And that thin set could be in the way of something else. And you don't want to come back later on and be using a chisel. Okay? Now, here we go. Whew. Alrighty. All right, now, I'm going to show you how to finish this off. Okay? Right? There we are. That's where I'm finished to. I'm going to take both of my strings, put them in this hole. I don't have a lot of product left, but I'm going to consolidate it all into the bottom of the pail because I've been doing this for a few minutes. What I want to know is it still going to work? So I take my finger and I go through it. Good. It's holding up a little bit, okay? As it dries, it starts to get stiffer. What that means is you got 2 options. You don't want it to dry out too fast, right? So if it starts to get too thick, all you do, because remember, we're just trying to make sure it doesn't dry out too fast. You can add a little bit more water to the next space. Okay? Make sure it's nice and damp. All right? And you're also going to have to use a little bit more force to press it in. But at the end of the day, this is all about making sure that when you pull up the corner of that mat, you're inspecting not just your skill at troweling, you're inspecting the quality of your cement. You're inspecting whether or not you put enough weight into it. Because unless you have that 100% looking bond, you have not installed the product correctly. Whew, okay. Remember, this is the science of working with a product that's been only understood and used well in the industry for the last 15 years, maybe. You really want to make sure that you're giving yourself a fighting chance by doing everything as good as you can, monitoring your situation. Now, the drier it is, the more you got to press. And for the love of God, if you find your cement is too thick, don't add water after the fact, okay? You're going to wreck the chemical composition. You're going to wreck the curing process, and you're going to have a tile failure. Just throw it in the garbage. Tile failure is never worth a couple dollars worth of cement. All right, there we go. Let's try this one. Barely even lift it. There you go. Perfect every time. Now, I'm gonna set back in again. Now, this is the drain for my tub. Again, there is no weight here. Okay, we'll get rid of that piece. Now I'm not going to risk forgetting that hole. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing for the other side. Yeah, that's work. Holy crap. All right. And is it just me or is it getting hot in here? You're not even working. You got a sweat going. This is a great time to, before you mix more cement, wash your tools. You don't want to leave the cement on here because it does dry pretty quick, right? Even like the fact that I got to scrub it off there just tells you everything you need to know, okay? If your tools are clean, then you stay clean. It keeps a clean job site. And it means you don't have to throw this out in the garbage. You can save it and use it another day. A little hint, the Schluter trowel. This is a great thickness if you're putting small tile on a kitchen backsplash with an adhesive. So you can use this there too. All right? So if you're gonna get that handy and you're gonna get the right tool for the job for doing this, then take good care of it because you can use it again down the road. All right, we also wanna wash our grout float. Inevitably, a little bit of thin set ends up on the side of these edges, right? And we want to be able to use this grout float to grout the floor when we're done. So take good care of it as well, because crusty edges make for a lousy grout float. All right, let's go through this again. Here we go, just a quick recap. All right, make sure we all understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We want to water on the floor so we can manage the moisture of our cement so it doesn't dry out too fast because it's using an adhesive quality, right? Yeah, that's nice and goofy, that's great. You want to start this process as far away as you can. Get it on the ground with the flat trowel. Force it into the plywood. Step one, right? Here we go. Then we want to start way back here and we want to trowel in our thin set, leaving ridges. If you don't have ridges, you are not going to get good contact. That's a failure right there. Lightly comb it so you can't see the plywood. That'll help guarantee a good bond. Now, Okay. Done. Now when you're working and you make a batch of cement and you do a one whole row with the same batch and you treat the floor the same the entire process, you rub in your Ditra, you pull the corner, you make sure that your components of that assembly are working fine. Okay? You don't have to check over and over and over again as you go along. You just need to know, does that batch bond well? And it did. I also have a lot left. Now, one of the coolest things about this product is that the squares are designed to be structural element. This is actually designed to be full of the thin set. Okay? It's not garbage at this point. Because this is all set. You don't have to wonder, hey, can I use this product here? Right? It doesn't matter. Now, I don't like to walk on this stuff when it's wet, all right? But this is a structural component, and these squares actually have to be full, okay? It's not enough to take this and go, oh, I'm directional traveled. See all those little gaps? That's product failure, okay? You need to have those squares full. So what I like to do with my extra cement is take the time before I leave the room, before I start tiling, fill them up as much as possible with my extra cement because it needs to go in there anyway. Might as well use it. And in my experience, people are more meticulous or fill in these holes when they're not tiling than they are when they are tiling. Okay? And part of it is like kind of like doing drywall work. If you come at it from two different directions, you're more likely to fill the square. And there you have it. Now we're set up for success. I've used the majority of my extra cement. In today's video, guys, we are installing 24 by 24 porcelain tile on our bathroom floor. We're going to do a complete tutorial for you. So this is designed for DIYers who don't know anything. When you have a project, the first thing you got to think about is this. What's my exit strategy from the room? You don't want to start tiling and then at the door, for instance, and working your way in and then having to jump and dive through there like an Avenger, right? So you want to have a plan of attack. You also want to have an idea of your line of sights, okay? The next thing, where are your grout lines going to be? Where are the cuts going to be, right? Very important. So this is a 2-foot tile, and this is a 6.5-foot deep room. That leaves me with a 6-inch piece, which isn't really a sliver, but with such a big piece of stone, it could make it look that way. So what we want to do is go like this. Okay, I'm walking in, my vanity is right here, okay? My tub's over there. I'm not going to see hardly any of these cut tiles anyway. So let's not make this an issue. The most important issue in this room is right here, at the entrance to the shower. I would love to have a full tile coming off this wall, and then another full tile coming off of that, okay? And then the last little piece underneath the vanity. That's perfect. So what we want to know is how square is my shower to the wall? All right, I'm going to push it all in the thin set here and check this out. There we go. My curb is perfectly square to that wall. Which means that if I install my tile with a little bit of a gap in both directions, okay, so that I can wrap my curb later, I have room for an expansion on that floor, okay? Now, I've gone ahead in advance and I grabbed my laser level right on, see this little yellow line? This little yellow line tells you where the laser is, okay? And so you can set it up to be right at the edge of your square. And then it'll tell you where that line goes over a long distance. In this case, we're looking for 12 feet. Now my gap off the wall here is exactly 1 3/4 inches. So I can go along the whole wall and check my gap. Obviously we have equipment issues here. I'm exactly 1 3/4 inches. So that's perfect. So make sure your starting line is a line that's going to be preferably square to the room, but visually is going to be pleasing when you walk into the room. So if the room is all kiltered, right, you might have to install your tile a little bit out of alignment in order to follow the predominant wall or to follow something like an entrance into a shower, all right? So now we know where we're starting. We're going to start with the most difficult tile on the whole floor. We've got a water supply and a toilet flange area. Like I said, if we give ourselves a little bit of mercy here, okay, we're going to start off with a nice healthy gap over here. We're going to be finishing off on this wall with baseboard. It's going to be 3/4 inch thick, so we got lots of room. Now what I can do is I can get my measurement to the center of this water supply, all right? And I want to get that measurement from my square, not the wall. So you make sure you hover right over top, and you can see that that dot is at 3 5/8. This line here is 3 5/8. And then this line here is going to be 9. All right. And then I also have a toilet flange. Now this is going to create a lot of issues because you got to be exact with all your cuts, right? Here we go. The toilet flange is exactly 7 inches. Okay. So I can measure to here and then add 3 1/2 to know where the middle is. But the middle isn't as important as where that edge is, okay? So let's just get this line here first. I can bring my tile close in this area, okay? But you want to actually be pretty close to this flange when you cut your tile. So we're going to go to 9. This mark here is 9. And then this mark here is the other one that we want, okay? Off of here, I'm going to go to 11 5/8. Come on, honey. There we go. All right. Woo! So, I know it's not sexy, but the first thing you got to do is be perfect. So we'll take a look at our measurement here. We have, we're 9 inches across and 3 5/8 down. So what I do is I measure to the 9 and I put a mark right here on my plywood table, okay? Now, putting a plywood table together is great news. What this does is it gives me the location, okay, where I'm going to put my dot. 3 5/8, boom, and then 9. I can put a little cross there, okay? That makes sense? That is just a great way to measure off your stuff. I'm looking for the middle of my toilet. So I'm taking the 9 measurement plus 3 1/2 because the flange is 7 inches, okay? And then in the same regard, I got 11 5/8 plus 3 1/2, 14 5/8, and then a half is 15 1/8. Okay, there we go. Now I can bring these lines together. I'm going to measure 12 1/2 from here. And then 15 1/8, boom. So there's my center here for the toilet, okay? Now remember the flange was 7 inches, all right? I know the first thing you're doing when you're learning how to do tile is you're gonna do the most difficult tile right away. But the rest is really quite easy and it's just a matter of assembly. So we put our mark on that center spot and we're gonna mark each end at 7, okay? And we're going to put it here, mark each end, 7. Catch the drift here, that goes pretty quick now. All right, and we're creating our circle based on that spot. All right, and that's what you're going to grind out. It's really that simple. And you can even draw it out if you want, if it helps. Put your knuckle here on the spot and make your hand into a protractor. Now, there is a good chance that that is going to be too perfect. It's exactly 7 inches. So what I'm going to suggest is that when you're cutting this out with the grinder, we cut on the right side, the outside of this line, to make the hole just a little bit bigger. And if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter because the toilet doesn't come exactly 7 inches wide. The base is always a little bit wider. You usually get about an inch or so of mercy on each side, okay? That's important. So you don't have to be too judgmental on your circle here. And I'm going to need a grinder and a special grinder blade. This is made for ceramic and porcelain. Available at Home Depot. Not a bad deal. It's a little bit 40 bucks. And then I got a rigid table saw. Large tile, all those thin cuts. I'm down here in Florida working on the trailer, right? And it's like almost 100 degrees outside. So I want to cut inside. This is old school. This is an old corded chuck. This tool, I think, was $65, if I remember correctly, which makes it very, very affordable. This saw is 1 3/8. All right, it'll probably punch a hole about 1 1/2 by the time we're done. But give you an idea, to do this right, you want to put 1 3/8. What's half of 1 3/8? 5/8 and then 3/16. God help us all. 10, 13/16. Okay, it's just a little less than 3/4. Let's visually do this. Yeah, a little less than 3/4. There we go. There's my halfway mark. Okay. So what I'm looking at is I'm going to be standing there trying to put the edge of the drill on that mark. Okay? Because what you have to do here, there is no tip. It's not wood. It's no drill bit as a pilot hole guide. So what you have to do is you have to start on the side going into that tile. And just to make sure that nothing moves around, clamp my tile to the plywood. Right? I mean, I'm not safety first, but I'm not stupid, right? Here we go. So we start off real slow, which is tricky with this particular tool because it is not designed to be used for this, but hey. And you slowly, once you get a good groove going, you can then rock this up into full contact. You don't want to come flush with the tool because it'll just run away on your tile, okay? So, here we go. Really gentle pressure, let the bit do the work. There we go. Now we've got full contact all the way around. Just about managing the heat. If you want to use a little bit of water here, you can. You see this swaying motion? It helps me make the hole just a little bit bigger so that the only thing the bit is cutting is on the interior of the hole and reduces friction. Remember, this is a tile. You don't want to be pushing too hard, okay? Because you could snap the whole thing in half. There we go. That is a perfect hole. Nice. Okay, mission accomplished. This is a 4-inch grinder blade. Similar to that hole, I'm going to be just using the grinder and passing it along on an angle, okay? That's it. Just like I said, we want to be cutting on the outside of that circle. Now, it is preferable to do this kind of work outside for the obvious reasons. Okay, now you can learn from that example. Don't be the guy doing this inside the kitchen. We've got a nice, oh, that is just gorgeous. Okay, now, I'm just going to keep throwing rules out as I go, okay? Whenever you're working with a large tile like this, you always have to set it with the face pointing out. The reason being, you don't want to have your leading edge ever on contact, and this is plastic, it won't hurt it, like this. Because any dirt that you set that tile on is going to chip the glaze. And then the whole tile is garbage, okay? Because it'll just pop a big chunk right off the front, and then you're done. So always lean it with the face pointing out, and that glaze will never come in contact with the dirt, and it won't chip. Now, the joy about this scenario here is that I can't turn the water off to this property entirely. Something wrong with the valve. There's going to be a little bit of water going on. We're going to just try to be as quick as we can, which would make sense if I actually did all the thin set work first. Yeah. Let's do that. So let's talk a bit about building science here, because it comes into play. What I've got on the floor here right now is the Ditra membrane. And the purpose of this membrane is to have an uncoupling system so that the tile is not attached to the subfloor of the house directly. And to understand everything about Curdy and the Ditra, I'm just going to have you check out the video description in the comment section below, and you can watch that video. But it is a miracle product that allows us as installers to minimize the height and provide us an uncoupling system, and it looks really cool. Now, all these squares have to be filled in, obviously. This is why I'm going to such painstaking efforts to make sure that happens. The large format tile, these 2-footers, okay, they're coming really popular. What we're doing here is we're trying to add a thick enough ridge, where did that come from, of thin set, that these ridges can be collapsed when we install our tile. Okay, and I'll show you. This is the system for troweling. This is a 1/2 by 1/2 trowel, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. It's important, all right? Big tile like this, you've got to have a 1/2 by 1/2. You can't try to cheat, okay? If you see sections like this that are missing thin set, there's not enough material there. Go put more on, okay? You pull across at a 45-degree angle until this thing is sitting up nice and perky like that, all right? There we go, okay? Now that's ready to go. So what happens is we set the tile line off center, and then we collapse them by pushing the whole tile to the left. That's the plan. The tile itself also has to have a layer of thin set on it. The easiest way to do that without damaging that glaze is to grab a couple of sponges, all right? And set your tile on that, okay? Now, what we're going to do is put a thin layer. The industry calls it back buttering. Okay. And what this does is it guarantees that contact. And one of the reasons we do this, to be honest with you, in the tile industry, they've had so many problems with the quality of the installs, because using thin set is a relatively new invention in the world of building and construction technology. It's only been around since the 60s. And in a large majority of the cases, the installations have been less than fantastic, right? The tile industry has suffered greatly with too much advancement and not enough experimentation. And not enough training on the people that work in it either. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to get rid of this valve. And it's going to leak. Hopefully not too much. I've got the other taps in the house on. Yeah, it's going to piss really good here. Now, the only reason I don't care about a little bit of water in this scenario is because this thin set is good to be used in situations where there's lots of water. Okay, now This is going to be a little messy and a little tricky, so I'm just going to make this super quick, okay? Put the tile down, and then we push it to the left. And we'll get that valve back in there right away. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that type of cement that I'm talking about is it's a non-modified. Okay, so it's not requiring an adhesive element or a latex element. Okay. Whew, there we go. Mission accomplished. Make sure this is compressed nightly. There's a little bit of that water. Doesn't matter though. Okay, here we are. Okay, so we have 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. That looks pretty darn good to me. Okay, now we're going to get into talking about the process of tiling and what it actually looks like. This and this. When you're tiling, you need 2 things. You need a pail with your thin set, all right? Of course, you need the right trowel. If you're using smaller tile, like a 12 by 24 or a 13 by 13 or something like that, you can buy a 1/4 by 3/8, not a 1/2 by 1/2. Use a lot less cement. Understand that a whole bag of cement thin set in this environment on Detra with this tile because of the size of the tile, with this trowel because of the size of the tile, sorry, you're probably only going to get about 8 tiles per bag of thin set installed. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're purchasing. You need a tile leveling system. Okay, now if you are just learning how to tile for the first time, resist the temptation to try to do this without a leveling system. Spacers are not enough, okay? All right, as soon as you get in a tile that's bigger than 12 by 12, you need a tile leveling system, and that is the way they come. The wedges come predetermine your grout size. Okay, so that's the gap in your floor. And this is 1/8, and that's what I like. Skinnier than that is too much, okay? And we're gonna need a few of these. I'm gonna show you how to install them. Right here, you take this, it's called a margin trowel, okay? And you just clean that cement away from your grout line. I know. Yeah, I don't see anybody doing this on any of the social medias, okay? Here's why. You don't need thin set in your grout area. As a matter of fact, it's an enemy. Because what you do with these clips is you slide them underneath in that abundance of thin set that's under there, because we used a 1/2 inch trowel. Okay, there you go. And if you put this in, when there's no thin set there, then when I put the next tile on, the place where this wants to break is right down here at the bottom. We'll show you later in the video how we take them out. But when we put them in, we make sure that they're nice and clean. All right? Because then you're breaking this off of itself and you're not embedded in a bunch of cement. If you get it embedded in cement, it breaks all over the place. And little pieces of that little clip are going to be sticking up through the grout line. Well, then it's too late, right? Then you've got a finished floor and you got to get in there with metal tools to try to cut that out. And you risk damaging your floor and popping some of that glaze off again. So it's really crucial at this point that you get those in and then you move on to the next tile as fast as possible. Let's get the next tile going. Woohoo! Yeah. And you can see some of these holes are already been filled with thin set. And that is because when I put the membrane down, I had some thin set left over. And so I just filled the holes with it rather than throwing it in the garbage, all right? Here we go. So, step 1, fill all these holes. They usually fill better if you come at it from 2 different sides. Okay, here we go. Those are full. I'm gonna have enough thin set to get this next tile in. Okay, beautiful. You see there's a grain direction in this picture. The other one's on a 45 as well. We'll try to keep that same grain direction in every tile as we lay. We don't want to go like this, because if you've ever looked at a natural stone, like a huge slab of granite, they don't have S-curves. They just have, you know, striations like this. It's all in one direction. So try to make it look as natural as possible. All right. Set it up against our clips here. They're plastic, so they won't chip that material. You see how I'm stopping shy of where I want it? Gently lay it on there, and then we're gonna collapse the ridges by pushing it down and over. Okay? Smooth on the bottom, they're notched on the top to provide grip. You compress it. Okay? What that does is it's pulling the flat on the bottom. They're pulling the height of the two tiles exactly the same spot. And this is how you avoid lippage. Right? Let's make sure we've got our consistent grout line. All right, now is a great time. If you see anything picking out next to your, like I got a little extra cement here, even with all that care, pull it out right away. Okay? Let's not have anything impeding the ability to kick that out nice and easy later. All right? And then while we're at it, one more thing we want to do. I never got a chance yet. I was running out of space. Clean everything as you go. Okay, there is nothing worse than the feeling of finishing off a tile job, and then everybody in the house wants to come and look at it, and then all of your tiles are filthy, and they go, "Oh my God, what did you do?" Now these are attached. I can check my angle, and I am actually growing away from the shower. So I'm going to fix that by moving all of this as one slab. And now I have my angle right. So you set it, you put the clips, right? And then you add the wedges wherever you can. Okay, here we go. Here we are. You clean out the extra cement away from where you're going to be putting your clips. Doing yourself a favor to avoid problems down the road. There we go. And then you directional trowel, you back butter, and you set, and then you compress. Rinse and repeat. That's the whole system. One more thing. Constantly be washing your tools. This bucket of water is there to keep the sponge wet, so you can wash your tiles, wash your hands, and wash your tools. Okay. Check this out. Where's the button? Okay. Now there's a light mist. Okay. And so you're going to get a little wet. Consider that before you pull this out and try doing all your cutting for a tile job in the middle of January in Northern Ontario. Because that is miserable. And adding hot water makes it worse. All right. Let's get our measurement, and then we'll be good to go. We have to install one more tile before we get the measurement, though. Now our thin set has been sitting long enough. 10 minutes to rest. We can go and install the next tile. Now in this case, I get to cheat a little bit. I get to trowel the whole rest of the gap. And you want to consider options like this. And then you can do the whole tile plus the next cut. Because this is under a vanity, I don't have to worry about how that grout line looks with a trowel this big. So consider that. So there we go. We have directional troweling in place now. And that's, again, so that air can escape when we're collapsing those ridges. You want to get 90 to 95% coverage. I'm talking about bond, right? Why don't we do that right now? I'll show you. I'm going to install this, make a mess and lift it up and show you what kind of bondage we're getting here. The other thing, guys, again, check your picture design, make sure it's all going the right way. Set it on the the plastic tabs, a little bit shy, right? Press it and collapse it. Put some pressure into it. There we go. Now I gotta do this for no reason. That tile went in really nice. But for the purpose of educating, let's have a look. See what we got. Yeah. Lots of suction is what we got. And that is perfect. The way this peeled apart is absolutely perfect. Too bad I can't just drop it back in. Now, it's all about the details when you're doing this kind of work, guys. It's not tricky, but it is all about the details. I need to have this back on purpose so we have somewhere to slide to, right? Remember, it was my process that we were checking, not that particular tile. Okay, as clean as we go. All right. Actually made a heck of a mess here doing that. Thin set everywhere. Okay, now, okay, we're also going to be getting extra cement out of the way there. Now I'm not using leveling clips in the back, okay? Just so you know, but I am going to need them on the side for later. So we're going to set a couple of these in here. We'll do our wedges, smooth side down. Okay. Okay, now let's take our measurement and we'll take that tile softer. Oh, dry run here. I'm exactly 3 5/8. 3 5/8. Okay, but I want a quarter gap at the wall. Okay, so that takes me down to 3 3/8. And I want an 1/8 for a grout line, so that's 3 1/4. Right? So that's what we're gonna cut. And it is 3 1/4. Good, that actually worked out. Now, it doesn't always work out like that. Now, I got my tile. I got my grain going across the floor this way, so that's correct. Because this can also be used at a later date somewhere else in the room. We're gonna get the blade spinning. We're gonna keep pressure against the guard, like this kind of direction. So this hand is pushing against the guard, and this hand is pushing. I'm going to be beside the blade on this side, going straight the whole time, okay? And I'm going to get a little wet. That's okay. Well, that totally farted, didn't it? I'd tighten this up by hand only. And that's not going to be acceptable. So what we're going to do is hold the blade, get a good nice tighten on there. Okay. Whew, that is a big piece of stone. These tables are rated for 24 by 24 if you're cutting square. And at the same time, you can see how difficult that is to manage all by yourself. But it works and it makes a nice cut. So let's go stick this in. This little chip right here, this is not a chip. This is the reaction of finishing off the cut because it wasn't started. For best results, if you're gonna have it in somewhere seen, you wanna always cut the first inch and then turn around and cut from the other direction, okay? And then you'll never get that damage. That'll happen every single time if you don't notch it first. Okay, here we go. Now, maintain the same process. We still have the back butter, even though it's a small tile, because we want it to sit at the same height as the rest of the tile. All right, there we go. Put a nice piece of tile together. And we're gonna press on the front edge here. And just set that in. Now you'll notice, because the banding around the edge, that it's a little thicker here. All right, so you wanna just fight with it a little bit. Put a straight edge on there. Make sure it's not too aggressively lifting up on the back side. This is not a good idea to do with your finger. That's the cut tile. Right. Keep everything clean. Remember, if the back side of that cut is full of cement, that's not officially an expansion joint. Okay? If there's no space, there's no expansion. So, consider cleaning that out as you go. All right? There we are. The next tile goes right in front of the door. We're going to talk about our strategy for the door area because it's really important. You will see that a lot of you are probably screaming at me in the comment section already in this video, going, Jeff, you're really screwed up by the door there, bud. Because my tile line is coming across about 1/2 inch off in front of the door. And what you might think is a mistake is actually intentional. We're actually waterproofing this floor. And so one of the steps of waterproofing is to have a transition tile in the door jamb that is higher than the floor tile. And it's a little bit of an old school look, but it's very effective. So if you don't have heat and cooling supply ducts in the floor, you can actually waterproof the floor. So if you get any spills or whatever, there's actually 7 steps to waterproofing a bathroom floor. And we're making that video. It should be out in a week or 2. Hopefully that'll help a lot of you guys off. In this particular video, I'm just going to show you one of them is to actually put in a transition. So this is not a mistake. This is all intentional. It's part of the plan, man. But you know, in this business, you got to know the end from the beginning. So part of the end here is to know that I'm going to need thin set in these little squares for my transition piece. Might as well add that right now. Being very cautious and intentional about how you're going to work up and around these things, okay? That is really good technique. Okay. Now, I don't have enough thin set at that end. Wow. This has got some personality. Man, check this out. What the heck? That is phenomenally awesome. There we go. I know that when you're watching and you're listening to that horrible sound, you're thinking to yourself, Jeff, is that absolutely necessary? And then, to be honest with you, it's part of my process. I want to have that same sound on every tile. Because now I know that I'm making positive contact with all the little bumps along the back. And I'm only putting enough thin set on there to give a surface coverage. I'm not actually adding another 1/8 or something. That creates a lot more work when it comes time to set these tiles. Now, what to do about this? Right? What an absolute mess this is. I'm a smart guy. I went out and I bought myself a vanity that's designed for installation on a tile floor with the penetrations coming through the floor and not the wall. So the base is closed, so you won't see any of this. So I'm not even going to put a piece across the back and fuss around with it. I'm going to just put this piece in and cut around for the purpose of that. Yeah. And that is going to be cut at, let's go to 18, just because I got lots of room. And I'm going to cut my tile off at 18. I'm going to do a straight cut. I know, there is no structural element on this vanity that requires tile installed back there. So I'm just going to move on with my life, make my job simple. And if you want to take the time to cut around all the little holes with all the different hole saw bits, you feel free to go right ahead. People that want to get particular about things that are never going to be seen. There's personality types out there, though. They're going to be jumping in the comments. Oh my God, I so would have done that. Guys, I'm sorry. I should have been wearing safety glasses last time I was using the saw. I was using my safety squints. It's probably not acceptable. I don't know where they are at the moment. So I just got to make a quick rip. We'll get on with our day. Remember what we talked about saving your offcuts? This offcut was actually 20 inches. So I just had to take a couple of inches off of it. I gotta make sure that I don't lose my process. Man, oh man, oh man, let me tell you something. Having yourself a process in this business is what it's all about. I get so busy talking, I forget to do my job. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. If it's too hard to push under, pull it out and try somewhere next door. Oh, there's an easy one. Okay, the floor is going to be installed a little bit like this. And that's the point of the clip system, is to traverse all of those ridges. So if you're having too much of a fight pushing it under, don't fight, just check a little area around it. Usually you'll find a spot that's a lot easier. Now, my wife is actually traveling today, so she's not here to see this. I'm sure she's going to make me send her a picture, which is why that's not going to even catch that tile. There we go. Which is why I'm going to keep the tile clean as I go. Nowadays, if you want to be a pro, you got to look it, you got to smell it, you got to talk like it, you got to act like it, you got to dress like it. And if you do all those things, people pay you good money to work in your house, even if you don't know what you're doing. Style over capacity, eh? All right. Now, this particular tile, I drew the green this way, so I have to collapse it this way. That's going to cause me issues with my grout line. I shouldn't have changed my process. Now I'm going to pay a price for that. This is going to be a messy tile install. Okay. There we are. You can break it off by accident. That's okay. Yeah, there's just a little bit too much thin set underneath there. Is that going to rise up on me? Yep, I'm going to need a clip. No way around it. So in this situation, we'll push it under and slide it over. We'll do it again. This one's going to need a little bit of love. Okay, that's acceptable. Using a clip doesn't guarantee it's going to be perfect, guys. It just guarantees that the top is going to be within acceptable limits. 1/16 lippage is acceptable. It's not desirable, but in older homes with dimensional lumber floors and all that warping and crowning, it's almost impossible to use large format tile and get a really perfect job. So don't be too hard on yourself if you can't achieve that, because this kind of tile was not developed for people with dimensional lumber in their houses. Okay, this is developed for people with engineered floor joists, because those are the only ones that have got a floor that's actually flat. You want to put something that big and that flat in somebody's house, it's already all warped and wavy. It's a near impossibility, so don't be too hard on yourselves. All right, guys, it's next morning. What I did is I actually sanded and primed the drywall. We finished all the tile off. We're gonna just go through a couple of details here. Here is my tub flange, okay? And we cut around it instead of going over top of it. We were using a 1/2 inch thick trowel, and you can see the cement before the ridges get collapsed. But after they're collapsed, it turns into like, I don't know, maybe 3/8, maybe 1/4. And it's just, instead of going over this metal, it's going to be covered by the tub. So it's just best to give yourself lots of room. Don't do cutting circles in your tiles. It's not necessary, okay? Just get it out of the way. Over here, the water supply. I cut the hole a little bit bigger. I've got my lines here. I've got my cold water marked on, string attached to it. This is cut in a square, but what I did is I took my faucet, brought it in, marked the 3 locations where the anchors are going to go through the ground into the plywood, and then cut a square out inside of that, okay? Basically, we just finished off the whole tile in the room. Nice and simple. It's ready for us to build on. Next thing we got to do is we've got to get rid of all these clips, okay? And it is really this simple, and it's kind of a lot of fun. We just want to be putting pressure on this clip, okay, against the grain of this yellow, all right? You just kick it off. So here's the clip before it breaks, okay? And that little area right there, that's where the weak spot is. And this is the clip after it breaks off, okay? Now, I like this clip system because generally speaking, you have to use a ton of cement if you were to kick this off and break it and have this red bottom part sticking up through. Some of the clip systems, it's more like a little H. There's 2 little bars, and you're breaking the 2 bars, and if you get caught in cement, then they're sticking out of the tile, okay? So this is really simple, a little bit of pressure. You don't have to be aggressive, okay? A little bit of, oh, that one's actually in some cement. You see that resistance? There we go. All right, now remember, these are all garbage, okay? So you can throw these out. You're gonna need more clips for the next tile job, but these are money. Save these and put them back in the bag that they came in because you can reuse these over and over and over again. All right, guys, now what we've got here is a man-made quartz sill. They actually make this available for sale at Home Depot and probably Lowe's as well, I'd imagine. We just basically cut this to fit the gap between the tile and the vinyl. The goal is not to have it perfectly fit, but to give us a little bit of room on each side to finish off with a silicone seal. But we're installing this over our Ditra, and the whole point of this is to have an edge at the threshold that sits higher than the bathroom floor, okay? But not so high that it becomes like a tripping hazard. Now, if you've been in houses from the 60s, you'll see this all over the place. It's how they used to finish off houses all the time. All right? And I know it's not the most modern look, but if you want to have a waterproof transition in your house, this is the only way to get it. Okay, slide this in. Okay, now, again, my goal is not to set it on the flooring of the vinyl here. In this room, just want to get close. Use a rag, clean that gap out. Okay. Some pressure to set that in. So I know I got positive contact. My extra thin set. Now this material is actually wider than this. It comes in about a 5.5 inch wide. And that's fine, right? These walls are made of 2x3s, so we had to rip it down. Whenever you rip it down on a wet saw, this edge is gonna be very sharp. So take yourself a chisel and let's just grind off that edge a little bit. Okay. Doesn't take much. That takes the sharp edge off. Now you aren't cutting your hand when you're running your hand over it, okay? Same with bare feet. If you walk out of here with wet feet, you know the skin when it's wet is a lot easier to cut. So having that chisel down makes that much better. That's a perfect gap for silicone on both sides. I'm really happy with that. What I do is I silicone, I fill underneath here, I fill up underneath the trim, okay? This little 1/4 inch edge here over the whole surface is gonna hold 10 gallons of water, all right? So if you have a problem bigger than 10 gallons, you really have a serious problem and you're getting an insurance claim. This will waterproof your bathroom against almost every other minor incident and guarantee you don't cause damage in your home that you're gonna have to repair out of pocket because most insurance claims have a deductible and water damage, you believe it or not, wrecking your ceiling isn't gonna cost you 5,000 bucks. It's gonna cost you $4,990 and your deductible will be $5,000. In this video today, guys, we are installing a 10x28 accent tile, floor to ceiling, wall to wall in the bathroom. At first glance, you might think, oh, Jeff, that's gonna be an easy project, right? Yeah, you just start at the bottom and you go to the top. The trick is, when you're doing a tile project like this, you have a few things to consider. One is the size of the tile, because you don't want your tile going full from the floor and then having a little sliver at the top. Because this is a lot more noticeable than down here, right? Because you're gonna have a vanity, we're gonna have a tub and all these things going on. So you wanna make sure that when you're doing a tile project like this, first thing you do is you measure from the floor to the ceiling. You get your number, okay? In our case, it's 80 inches. And then you go to the tile store with that number in mind, and you find a tile that'll stack with a grout line to that measurement. Okay, do yourself a favor. This is the biggest key that no one ever does. They go to the store, they fall in love, they go, oh, I like that one, let's make that work in the room. And then you run into nothing but challenges. So in my case, my tile is 10 inches with a spacer, okay? So I'm gonna be fine. And now I have a little variance here because of the room. So my plan is to add a trim molding after the fact to cover any gaps that might appear. So I have a trim molding up here. I'm gonna get the same thing, duplicate it down here, and it's gonna solve my problem. Now, that's the height issue taken care of. The next issue is this, 28. Well, 28 is a really interesting tile, okay? So you get a grout line there, you get one here, and then you're gonna get one here, and then look at that, I have 31 inches left. That's a challenge. I don't want a 3-inch piece of tile. So I can't just start on one wall or the other, or one end is gonna have a 3-inch sliver. Now it's not terrible over here if I had a 3-inch sliver, because this tile is only 23, and it could look like it's wrapping the corner, but let's just face it, that is not a sexy look, okay? So what I wanna do instead is, I wanna take a look at this grout line, and instead of that being the end of a tile, what if that's the center of my tile? Okay, so I go 14 to 28. Here's my new lines. 28 from here, takes me to about here. That's a nice big piece, okay? And then over here, we'll do the same thing and you'll see what happens. That's a nice big piece, okay? No slivers. Truth is, it's gonna take more stone. I need more tiles to do this because I can't use the offcut to finish a wall. So I'm gonna have a little bit of waste, but because we're using that same tile in the whole shower, I don't mind because I've got all kinds of little walls here that I can take all those offcuts and make valuable use of them. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this our center line. So this will be our first grout line. We're gonna go floor to ceiling. We're gonna stack it, rack it, and pack it. We're gonna install this bad boy. We're gonna show you some tips and tricks because wall is not straight, but the tile needs to be, okay? So what I'm gonna do is get into this. We're gonna mix up some cement, show you how to make your thin sip, show you the tools you need to apply, how to cut, how to work around your electrical plugs, and how to keep your wall tile flat. We can use spacers. We can't use leveling clips because of the detail of this particular tile. It's not gonna work, all right? I'm just gonna create new problems. So instead, we're gonna have a different way to find out where the dips and valleys in this wall are. So this is gonna be my center line, okay? But that's the center, not the center line. It's the center of the tile. So we're gonna measure off of this, and we'll call this our center line. And I can drop a laser, so I know where to start. I wanna just take this measurement to the wall, 42 minus 42 inches minus my tile, which is 27.5. And then I also have to add a grout line, 3/8, 27, and we'll give ourselves a little bit of mercy, 27 even. That's gonna be my cut. So what I do is I drop a laser line and I check the measurement all along the wall. So here I'm exactly 2 inches. And from the same position over here, I start going up a little bit to 2 1/4, 2 1/8, which means that is the high side, okay? So we want to start installing at the high side and then maintain a level line across the room. That's why we did the measurement from this grout line. Okay, we'll start with the short piece, and then this tile. We're going to use a combination of 3 different spacers in order to build our support underneath, and then finish that with a siliconized caulk. that's designed for expansion joints. Okay, and that's how we finish. So it doesn't have to look perfect. We don't need to be scribing tile and cutting the little thin 1/16th of a line out of it. It's better to have a little bit of a gap growing than to try to cut all the tiles to fit the space. So always start from the high side, not the low side. In most scenarios, there's not going to be that dramatic of a difference. It's necessary to scribe the tile in. But if it is necessary to scribe, then start at the low side and, you know, enjoy that ride, okay? First of all, let's get this line on here, because that was the basis of our measurement for our end tile. This is where my first tile starts. We're going to get this on the wall. We're not going to worry about how perfect this particular tile is installed right now. Okay. Expose our line and a little more. There it is. Okay. All right. We're using 1/4 inch by 3/8 trowel. Okay. And we're going to be using directional troweling techniques. And whenever you're putting a horizontal tile on a wall, go straight up and down with your trowel. Because we're putting that much cement on the wall, and these tiles are relatively large, and I checked, and the walls are generally sort of smooth. They're not bad. Not a wet area. We're just going to back butter, just for good measure. Here we go. Okay. Now we're going to collapse those ridges. Find my pencil mark here. There it is. There's my line. And for now, I'm going to use that wedge just to hold it in place. We're going to wait until I run out and grab a cut. Now you see, this is part of the drywall. It's where it's tapered off. So you're not going to get the greatest bond with your cement here, okay? Which is why when you're troweling, you want to trowel over that area. It'll build it up higher so it stays consistent with each side. All right? Let's take a look and see what kind of bond we have here. Oh yeah, fabulous contact. So we got great contact across the top, but not across the bottom. Those lines didn't get collapsed. So we're going to give it a good push. Make sure we get a better bond. Never have tile installed on tile. These wedges have a really thin edge. You can just stick a 32nd of an inch. But if it's a gap, it can move independently without putting pressure on each other. Now, one of the benefits of working on your own home is that you're going to take time to make sure everything is square. I built this wall, and it's perfectly square. So that means if I'm installing my tile level on a square wall, every measurement all the way up that wall is exactly the same. And that means I can go right out to the saw right now and cut 8 of those exactly the same size. Every time, eh? Wow. The dry erase marker doesn't wash off when you're cutting, but it wipes off when you're finished. So consider using that for your next tile job. It makes a great line. That's going to be perfect. Again, 1/32 of an inch off the floor. And we're going to have a nice little 1/8 gap here. That'll be plenty. Okay? Now, the way we check to see if everything here is level is you want to get a horizontal line on something metal, like in another room. Here we go. I can slide this down until it hit the top of my tile line. And as you can see, it's perfect here. And it's a little low here, okay? This little baggie of wedges are fabulous. They're made of rubber. Okay, and they stick really good. So I'm going to stick a wedge on that, and see how that one works out. Now that is much more perfect. Okay, so that's how we're going to use it to draw our line all across the room. This is going to work out really good. When you're doing stacked tile, you got two options. You can do the whole row, one row at a time, or you can do a whole stack. If you do a whole stack and you've got a vertical laser line, then it's much easier to know if you're square on your next row. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Actually, intentionally, I'm going to start and go 3 or 4 high right here so that I know if I'm square. Okay. All right. And that's taking me to about there. There we go. All right. It's going to be necessary here the same way. Let's close that gap. Now I have a gap open here. I already know that that corner is low. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to lift this up to that where that line is just hitting the top of that, and I'm going to lay that plastic in there. Now these have got little steps on them, so they operate really well at keeping things level. Before we go to the next tile, let me show you. This is the finger trick. Okay, you want to keep the thin set out of your grout joint. To protect the tile, chip the glaze, and we're going to lift it up on purpose. Line up there, and then we'll push down. Now these are not plastic. These again these are the rubber kind. Okay, get everything just perfect. Oh, I hate when that happens. Ah, yuck. Okay, we'll deal with that in a second. All right. Try to resist the need for using any kind of metal tool when you're working with tile. Okay, and get that line perfect. Every little while, take a minute, clean your tools. If your tools are clean, you'll stay clean. This is a concern. As this gets a little thick, it gets harder and harder to get a nice bond, right? Remember what I said? If the cement's sitting there too long, it skins over. It won't bond to the next tile. So, you gotta recomb the entire area. Don't be cheap near the edges. All right? As the installer, it's up to you to make sure that all of your corners are good. That's where most of the damage occurs in ceramic. It's the glaze at the corner that gets compromised. So before you install it, you have to make sure that everything you build is perfect. Tiling is the one trade with the least amount of mercy, because all the mistakes are in the finished product. Here's how we do this. Okay. We're going to put that right where my spacing is perfect here. And I'm going to mark right where the hole is, because you always want to cut on your mark, not on the other side of it. And then I'm going to go here where my space is perfect. And I'm going to cut right here on this plate, because that hole is where the screw goes in to mount the box. All right? And so I want to get that mark here. Sorry, right there. Okay? And then I'm going to use a square to bring that line over and translate it, and then cut that out with the grinder. That's how the tile gets installed. Okay? So the next tile has the same cut line. I can measure all this right here, right now. So I'm going to go here to here. I'm going to 3 3/4. It's a perfect size. So that's at 2, and it's 3 3/4. So I measure from there 3 3/4. There's the top and the bottom of my box. Okay. And because there's a plate, there's a little bit of mercy here. That's my box. All right, I can cut both of these pieces at the same time. That's only one trip out to the grinder. Okay. Let me show you a little trick here, because it is really difficult to do good directional troweling around a scenario like this. Okay? So you reverse your system. You can back butter the wall and then do your directional troweling on your tile. It has the exact same result. The difference is, in this scenario, I can control how much cement is in each surface. Much better. Okay? That's back buttered. Lovely. If you try to directional trowel on this, you'll end up with way too much thin set in a small space, because you're going to get the angle wrong. So you're either going to put way too much or not enough. Keep everything consistent. Thin layer back butter, 45-degree angle directional troweling. Keep that consistent and your whole job will be consistent. All right, so the process when you're tiling is you get it on, let it dry 6 hours. Usually that means overnight, and that's fine. Then you pull out all these little rubber pieces, okay? And as you pull, the little piece gets thinner and pops right out. Should be no issue. Just use your hands. If you have to use a tool of some sort, a small pair of pliers, okay? And just grab the edge. Try to avoid getting the metal up against the glaze. That's where you'll have issues. Then you can come along with a wet sponge and you can wash all this. These are all water-based blobs of whatever goo they're using here to protect it. Any thin set will also wash off, all right? And you can use your sponge and get into your grout lines if you need to clean out any extra thin set. It's always better to keep it clean as you go so you don't have a lot of cleaning to do. But, you know, eventually, sooner or later, you're going to find something somewhere. So you want to wash all that out before you do your grout work, because thin set, even if it's white, is not the same color white as your grout. All right, well, we just got to dry fit this now and make sure that I didn't screw it up. It's perfect. We're going to go directional troweling on this. And away we go. All right, we're set. Start a little high. Get our little rubber things here. There we go. Now I push down. Okay, so something is going on where this tile is higher than this tile, just by a hair. All right, this is a really great opportunity to have a problem, because we get to learn from problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our wedges, which start out the same thickness as the spacers, but go to 0. Okay, and I'm going to replace this with a rubber wedge on both sides and get that tile in line. This is the time to do it. The first few feet are great opportunities to make sure everything is level. Once you get up in front of eye level, anywhere after 4 feet, everybody walks in the room is going to see that the tile is out of alignment. And you know what? Even when you work with a laser, it's hard to make things perfect. Because you have to be 2 inches off the ground to see if something is perfect at 2 inches off the ground. So this is why we're constantly adjusting. That's why I make 2 full rows and then use the laser to double check, because the laser and your ability to read that mark might be wrong, but the tile never lies. If it ain't perfect, trust me, it just ain't perfect. Oh, I'm feeling much better about this now. All right. There we go. That's nice and consistent. Here's my line. I collapse the ridges left to right. So I start right on the tile. I press because I'm a little thick here, and then I collapse going to the side. Now I can use my hands, make that adjustment. Hop, 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 hop. See this? That's a little glazed corner that chipped. That doesn't look like much right now. But if I grout this place, that corner is going to be red. I'm never getting rid of that. This is a reject. Unacceptable. All right, this one's good. It's going to happen, guys, when you're doing tiling. The bigger the tile, the more waste you need. This is something nobody ever talks about. The industry says, you know, you should have about 10% extra when you order. That can run you into some trouble for the following reasons. A lot of times, one of the boxes that they ship you will have breakage. There'll be like 6 or 8 tiles in a row with the corner chipped off, all right? And that's so common that they don't even count that as damaged tile. You can't call them up and say, I need to replace this box, right? That's a lot of effort. And by then you're what? You're across town, you're in the middle of your project. What you do is you take your boxes and you move them into the house. And if you hear crunching noises, you got broken tile. That's it. That's up to you. And if you left the store with broken tile, you know it because you carried it into your car. Now, after it leaves the store, they assume it's your fault. So here's the plan. Every tile job has got offcuts. It's got places where you're going to be cutting the tile shorter. Figure that out. Mark that box. Set it somewhere for use on XYZ space, okay? Like if I had a box that had all broken corners, which I did, we use that box to make all of these because the other third is of no use to me, right? So do yourself a favor. Depending on how convenient it is for you to get replacements, you might want to even go up to 20% extra material. Here we go. These are done. We're just going to do the other 2 rows now. It's making me work so hard lately. This stuff is just like whipped cream. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Now that's thin set. All right. Okay, that's a messy corner. We're just going to start off right here. Get rid of this extra material. Now when I slide it up and away, at least it'll leave no crap in the grout line, right? All right, guys, one quick trick. We're coming across a straight wall. We're hitting the edge of a drywall. It's taped in the corner, so it actually has a curve. So this point is out higher than the rest of that wall. So what we do here, take a little extra thin set on this edge, right about 2 inches from the inside here. Add just a little bit of texture, okay? Because your wall's not flat. That will help make sure you get a much better bond. Just to show you. Okay. I got good bond here, and not so much in the middle. That's because the wall is no longer flat. You know what? It's also perfectly acceptable. Oh, I know, and there'll be people in the comments who claim to be God's gift to the tiling world, complaining, that's not 100% coverage, Jeff. I'm like, you know what? The goal of this tile is to not fall off the wall, okay? It's here for aesthetic reasons more than anything else. Here we go. Let's get it level, let's get this gap consistent. Let's get a few tiles in so we know if we're moving this way or that way. That's it. And the truth of it is, if a tile wall is going to see a lot of activity, okay, then you should be using a thicker cement and probably go to porcelain tile. I only use ceramics whenever I have immaculate substrate, or it's just there to be decorative. So, get your knickers in a knot. All right, here's just a quick tutorial today, guys. We're gonna do the grout work. Take one bag, always use the whole bag, okay? It just avoids a whole lot of problems. And for the purpose of this Caracolor, and read your instructions on the back because every product's different, it's 2 fingers of water in the bottom of a pail. That's it, nice and simple, okay? And you may like it a little thinner or a little thicker than that, and it's completely subjective. Just remember, the thicker the paste that you're applying on the wall, the less shrinkage you're gonna get, right? And when you're dealing with vertical surfaces, it's kind of nice to have it a little pasty so that it's not just flopping all over the place and making a mess. All right. And like most products when we're mixing, always let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes before you start using it. You want to use a rubber grout float, okay? Get the thick ones, not the thin ones. And make sure it's for regular grout, not epoxy, all right? Just read the labels. And buy a couple of sponges, okay? These are real common in the building center. They do a great job of removing grout haze and taking extra material off and polishing up your grout edges. And of course, a second pail with water in it so that we can clean. And I like to have a piece of plywood or cardboard or something on the ground, just so that when you're working, if a blob falls, in this scenario, like I'm gonna grout the floor next, but it's a different product. So I don't want to fill up grout lines with this and then have to spend my time cleaning it out. The secret is all about keeping clean. All right. Moving that grout all over the surface. And then once you've got it distributed, something that's not going to be messy, you can work on your angle to fill all the gaps in. Okay? And you can work in either direction, up and down. It doesn't make a difference. It's just about getting things filled. Hold the float on a 45 and apply it on a 45-degree angle. Not that tricky, is it? There we go. And in a few minutes, this will stiffen up and we won't have that mess going on, but okay. Generally speaking, you want to start on one side of the room, work your way around in an orderly fashion so that you can wipe it off in the same manner, so that all the grout that you clean has had the same amount of time on the wall. So you're not forgetting something that went on first and then removing that last, run the risk of it stiffening up too much. Then you can't polish a nice edge. There we go. All right. Now this has got texture. So when I'm done, I'm actually wiping it off the wall as well. That'll reduce the amount of time that I spend cleaning. Okay. There we go. That actually is thickening up a lot nicer. Okay. Now in this case, I'm actually installing a vanity. It's going to be 48 inches, I think. So I don't need to have grout on the wall, but I always like to grout the entire surface in case somebody comes along and wants to change the product. What if they want to change the vanity and have open shelving? You see how nice and thick that is now? I was going to say it gives you a lot of control, but there we go. Okay. And you're applying it, pushing it up. It's always a lot cleaner than if you apply it pushing down. It'll just bunch up on your float and head for the floor. Now here's an interesting section. We're changing materials from tile to wallpaper. Okay, so I'm going to finish with silicone. So I don't need to fill that gap. All right. And remember, if you're going to grout, it's always easier if your wall surface is washable. So consider buying a high quality bathroom paint that's got 100% acrylic paint. Now this particular grout has a really nice long working time. So I'm going to leave it in the pail until I'm done in case I expose an air bubble. All right. And the first thing I'm going to do, wash my tool. One of these will last you years if you take good care of it. And if you don't wash it, it's garbage by the next morning. That you can bank on. There's no saving one of these after the fact. Okay? Depending on how thick your grout was that you mixed up, you might need to let this sit for 10 or 20 minutes. I'm just going to give it a little bit of light pressure and see that it's still got some resistance. So that's good. So I know that I'm going to have to give it a couple of wipes. That means I'm going to control it and buff my lines without taking all the grout out of the lines. All right, so this is a really good look here. So this one's buffed. You can see the edge faded nice along this little bevel, okay? And over here it's filled in from the top of the ridge to the top of the ridge. Simply by passing the sponge over it, gently, it goes from the bevel to the bevel, okay? There we go. Always go on an angle, 45, straight up and down, whatever it takes. Don't ever wash in the same direction as the grout. You will wipe it all out. If you got a gap, you just finger it in. There we go. That's the basics of this. All right. That's how you wash it. Wring it out, and then just keep on buffing. We're not worried about the little bit of haze on the wall. There will be a second wash. We'll take care of that then. All right, guys, so the way you work this, bring out your sponge. The water shouldn't fall off the sponge, okay? Just enough that you press it against the wall, do 3 or 4 feet, lift, flip it over, do another run. That's it. Now you gotta wash. Submerge it, and you squeeze it out. This picks up all that extra residue on that tile. And you can come down here, finish the bottom. Now, the reason you have this wrung out, we're not trying to introduce new water to this. We're trying to remove excess grout on the surface. And we want to do the same motion every wipe so that every grout line is subjected to the same amount of exposure to the water and is treated equally. And that will result in your grout lines all being the same color. You can overwash. So if at this point you go, oh, I don't like how that looks, and you start rubbing with a sponge, that part of the grout is going to get completely washed away of all of the colorant, and then you're in trouble. So when you're polishing, you polish. When you're washing, you wash. When you wipe, you wipe. You don't go back and forth with those three processes. So now I've shown you how to do the grout on the wall with the regular Cara color. I've showed you how to use the ultra color and how to use it in more of a floor leveler technique, okay? And then basically that one was all about how to sponge it off and how to move the product around. Trusting that it's gonna set up without shrinking too much, and it does. At the end of the video here, we'll have nice close-up pan shots of all the different products, okay? So you can have a good look what the end looks like. Now we're gonna do the floor of the bathroom. Same product, ultra color. Same color, totally different technique. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're using a small space, you can do this, okay? You can take a little bit of water and a little bit of powder, and you can actually hand mix. And then see how the powder sits in the middle and the water is floating around it. So for hand mixing, this is without the machine, right? And the purpose of this is for you to get an idea of how much energy it takes for you to mix the two together. They don't like each other at the beginning, okay? You really got to work it in. You should be able to get a pretty consistent colorant and texture with this product because it doesn't have any sand in it, okay? Well, it has a little bit of sand. It's a really minor amount. It's not like sanded grout. It has a little bit of sand, so it helps it stand up for those half-inch gaps. And just a little bit of working time, you can get this product pretty consistent and smooth. No high speeds. Really helps to prolong the pot life of that before it'll be garbage, okay? Now, got to give it a couple minutes to set up. While we're doing that, we're gonna go wash the floor, and then I can start applying that right away. Just dirt and debris that you don't want to have trapped in your grout line. So before I mix my grout, I always take my vacuum and I go along all my grout lines, get all the debris, you know, loose hair, garbage from the construction site, all that business. Really just want to make sure you have as clean a surface to work with as you can. The less garbage you trap in your grout lines, the easier the whole process is going to be. Okay, so this room is a rectangle. The door's in the middle on that wall. So I want to grout this side, grout the other side, and then grout from the back wall on my way out of the room. Constantly washing where I go, knowing that my knee pads and my feet are probably dirty, so I don't want to get the area contaminated. So I'm trying to minimize what I'm doing. I poured half the material onto my floor here, okay? And it's still a little loose. Probably could use a little more setup time. That's fine, okay? We're gonna use our grout float, 45-degree angles. Same concepts as every other time we grout, like with regular grout. 45 to press it, okay? Push it around. Don't move your knees around. Just move the material. Now, if you know, for instance, that you're going to be adding baseboards afterwards, which if you're a renovator, it's like really nice to do that. Okay, you get a great look. Then you don't have to be as picky up against the corners. Now, I mixed a half a bag of this product. Yeah. Probably more product than I need, and that's fine. I'd rather have more than not enough. Remembering that this isn't about perfection. This is just about getting it in the cracks. Okay? There we go. And then we're gonna let it set up. So this is a little thicker than the last batch I put in the other floor. And there's a reason for it. And that is, when this does set up, you really want to be ready to wash it right away. Remember, for prolonging the working time, use cold water in your mix. If you're in a hurry and you're doing a patch, then by all means use the warm water. If you use warm water, you can pretty much forgo the whole waiting 3 to 5 minutes as the rule for before you start applying the product, okay? If you mix this like a paste, like the wall, you are in for deep trouble. I'll tell you right now, it just sets up too darn quick. All right, now, I gotta change my position, put more material in front of me, and then I'm gonna start working my way out of the room. But I'm also going to walk out of the room first, grab my sponge and my pail, and wipe this area that I've been working from again, just to get more of that debris out of the way. So I'm just going to set this aside here on my tile. We're going to give this about 5 minutes to set up. We're going to come back and check for some air pockets, do a little wiping. I'm going to have to take the knee pads off for this one because I don't want to get dirt out there. And then go out there without my shoes on, with my stocking feet. You have to have a rule. Nothing comes past this door when you're working on a floor that can be bringing dirt into the room. Having a little bit of construction paper or a piece of cardboard helps. Just try not to put your toes or your feet in the grout lines. Large format tile makes that easy, okay? I'm just looking for imperfections that I want to fix. Knowing that the outside perimeter is going to get silicone on the edge, baseboard on the other sides. Not worried about any of that. Just checking for places where, here, see that? The material filled up the grout line and then sank because there was obviously a cavity underneath that needed to be filled. Okay. Nice and full. Vanity goes all back through there, nobody cares. Tub goes all over there, nobody cares. Now, with my extra material, I'm actually going to send it all into that far corner. This floor is very unique. Because this house is so out of square that I had to make a decision when I put the tile down. Do I want the tile to be up against the wall, right? Nice. And then not square with the shower? Or do I want straight off the shower and then, or do I want to have little cuts all around the room? I said, forget it. I just built a build-out base so that I can put a baseboard in front of it to close that natural occurring gap. Now I'm going to push all this over there. Because in that very far corner, I'm going to probably see a little bit of grout line. Okay. Here we go. There we are. So if I'm going to get a grout line, I want to have a nice one. Now that's something that I can manage just fine. All right. There we go. There we go. Extra product in here, why not? All right. Now I'm good to go. Now I'm comfortable. I got all my base is set here. Gaps are filled. I'm gonna peel this back a little bit and have a double check here. Yeah, figures I would do that. Second, that out of the way. Figured where the paper was, it soaked up some of the grout. That's okay. I have more grout. I also don't have any dirt on that floor. The key is, when I do go to wash this, I want to go in a position where I'm going to wash in front of the door first. And that makes it tricky, right? Because when you're washing, you want to be able to wash where you started. But because this is a chemical dry, it's all going to be in the same condition. So it isn't going to matter where I started. There we go. Now everything's laughing. All right. So we give this about 10 minutes and then we wash. This crap is just not forgiving at all. There we go. Well guys, today is tub day. I'm so excited. We're going to be installing our freestanding soaker tub and our tub faucet filler because I'm really looking forward to dropping it into this special system that we installed right back from the very beginning of this build so that we don't have to open up anything from underneath to make the connection. This is the side that has to remain unscratched forever and ever, amen. Okay, so we can set it on the back in the room here. Just set it down. Okay. Where's my plug? Where's my plug? Right there.
Looks pretty good.
Just taking a look at this, we should get closer to the ground. So let's pull it out and then set it on its back. All right guys, here's our tub. And here's the situation. This has framing, reinforced fiberglass, adjustable legs. Great, great, great. Now, the goal here is not to put all the weight on just the legs, okay? It's kind of like, to give you more stability when you're getting in and out of the tub. You want the edge of the tub right here to be on the ground. The legs are here to supply stability to the actual inside of the tub. So it's not deflecting and moving around. It reduces the risk of cracks down the road. We really want the tub sitting on this. So what we want to do, and this is one of the reasons why when we installed the tile, we used a tile leveling system. I put my framing square across the feet. I'm a 1/4 inch off here, a 1/4 inch off here. So what I want to do, oh yeah, that's going to be really hard, isn't it? Got to loosen the nut to do it. And what I want to do is I want to take my adjustable wrench here, okay, loosen up that nut. And now I can set this to where I'm flush with the edge of that tub. So that the feet and the edge of the tub are making contact at the same time. And we'll double check that we didn't adjust anything too far one way or another. That's about as close as you're ever going to get on any given Sunday. All right, here we go. We'll do this over here as well. Yeah, that's a big gap. Contact to contact. All right. Good. It seems like all of these feet are factory delivered a 1/4 inch out. And that is not too terrible. All right, but when you make a flat floor, you got the ability to really increase the quality of your install. Now when I set this in place, it should have no gap from the tub to the floor, which means when I go to add my silicone seal, I can use a high quality structural clear silicone, not translucent. Translucent goes yellow, the clear stays clear. And we can put a bead of this around the outside of the tub to help stabilize it from movement and to give it some adhesion to the tile so it avoids tip over, because there's always somebody who wants to get into a tub when there's no water in it. These are not designed to be climbed in without water. The water that fills the tub is actually designed to keep this thing from tipping over, all right? So I always have the silicone. It's not for waterproofing, it's for stability. Okay. Okay. Wow. That's about as close as we're gonna get. Okay. We may not achieve perfection here, but we are gonna have is a really tiny gap. Okay, the tub has a concave curl to it already. And this allows me to fill that up and eliminate that shadow. All right, now we gotta attach our drain and then we can just set it in place. Okay, here we go. So this particular tub comes with the overflow already attached to this little drain here. Make sure that that nut is nice and hand tight. It's gonna have a washer in it. The way the assembly works, I'll show you in a second, but first we want to check if our nut is fitting on these threads comfortable. Yes, see, it even has a little bit of wiggle room there, right? See that? That means we don't have any risk of cross-threading when we go to install. Here's our tailpipe. I've got almost 6 inches going below the floor. And in my drain assembly, my gasket is about 3 inches from the top, so it's a perfect size. So here's what I call the hat gasket. Looks like a little top hat. It goes in there like that, sits flush with the sides, okay? This can be compressed. And we slide this ring on, okay? We stick it on the hole. Now there's only one groove that starts, so you gotta line that up. The easiest way to do it is go backwards, pushing with all 4 fingers until it sits in position. There it goes. Now you know you're not going to cross-thread it. Because when you're working with metal parts and plastic threads, the biggest enemy you have is cross-threading it. You'll never get the right compression. Okay, and then when you go finger tight, now's the time to pull out the old big jaws here. Get this bad boy on here. You want to go another full quarter. Because you want to put that gasket, that hat gasket, under compression. Now we got a seal. Now all we got to do is lift this in. And because lifting it isn't a 2-man job, make sure you organize your schedule. They're not heavy. The tub itself weighs about 50 pounds. So it's just awkward. And because this is metal and because we have a plastic connection, we want to lift it up, then rotate it and set it straight into the hole. Once we install the tub, we're also going to do the stand-up tub tower filler, okay? It's about a 3.5 foot tall chrome piece of fixture. But I wanted to demonstrate this. Here's our plug. Okay, this is just to keep the sewer gases out of the room while we're working from when we first set this in place till now. And this is my rubber gasket. And here's an extension for a tailpiece, so it demonstrates it. This is, look at all the room here. So we can just get it in roughly the spot and it'll seal it right there. And then we're just gonna push it in place. Here we go. That's the whole process right there in a nutshell. That way you get a brass pipe and a rubber gasket and it's waterproof forever.
Now you gotta move back some.
Yep, we're gonna move back a bit and to my bit of it. Here, there we go.
Yep.
Right there. Okay, now you gotta push on it. All right, there we are. Thank you. No. Doesn't go square. Actually goes on an angle on purpose. That's one of the benefits of this. See the benefit of this? Now that we're in this drain, I have all the flexibility in the world. I can rotate this tub and get it in the final position. Okay? So this gives you the ability, you can change it on an angle. Now before I put it in this final resting place and add the silicone seal so it doesn't move again, now we want to install our water tub filler so that it's exactly dead center of the end of the tub. Okay? So we'll wait on this because I can make adjustments. This drain installation is a miracle worker. Okay guys, so I went out and I picked up a female half to a male 3/8 because the fitting that I'm using has two lines that are 3/8. So I've got to put this on here, find that sweet spot, and this is my hot water line. Okay, I'm thinking all that thread sealer on there. With that much torque, I don't see that being a problem ever, ever, ever. All right, so just like when we did in the very beginning, when we were trying to identify when we were working on plywood, where the drain would be with the tub, where this goes, I have to now assemble the basic guts of this. And that's because machine threads have one entrance and one final resting place. Okay, so I don't know where to drill these holes until I put this together, because I want to have the function of this tower in the right position when it's all tight together. Like if I install it based on, I just drill 3 random holes and I want this facing here, well, when I put the final thread on, nice and tight, oh, well that's tight, now it's in the wrong spot. So what I should have done is go like this, put it where I want, mark the holes, okay? So assemble this first, make sure you got your final tight in. Now we're gonna go over here, set it in position, okay? Put the center of that tub right where I want it. Square this to the front, okay? Now this is also the shower wand. So, do we want it like this? Or do we want it like this? All these are options that we have because we got 5/8 plywood down there. And remember, I beefed up the framing. Okay, because people are in the tub, they're right-handed, they lean forward, they can pull that off. And for filling and for adjusting, that's easy to do. I'm thinking that there's so much going on here, I want to have this controlled on the right side and the hose on the left, and I'm going to go with it this way. Okay, give that nice and squared, final resting place, pointing at the drain. It's about as sexy as it's going to get. Now, I can pull out my marker, come down here, and just put a little black dot in the middle of all 3 of these, and that will be where I drill my holes through the tile to put my stainless steel number 10 screws, 2-inch, through the tile and through the plywood, and anchor that in place. All right. Now I got to take it all apart again, because now we know the final resting place. We also know that the water supply lines, which are here and here, okay, get the double gasket, get threaded into that column, into that neck. All right? So this gets assembled in stages. So the first thing we do is we mount this to the floor. Then we connect the water lines to the floor. And then we slide this piece over the water lines, connect it to the base. And then we connect these water lines into the neck, and then we tighten up the neck. Ay caramba. Now I've got a 1/4 inch diameter screw, okay? And I have an imperfect system for marking the hole. So, as a result, I've got to be somewhat careful here to give myself the room that if the screws aren't perfectly aligned in the hole's big enough for the screw, because if I just put 3/4 inch holes in and I don't line them perfectly, my screws are not going to go in right, and I risk compressing, putting pressure on the tile and then breaking the tile. At this point in the job, anything you can do to minimize the risk of breaking a tile, you do. You spend whatever money you got to spend. Okay, so there's 2 of my screws. Here's another one. All right, now I'm gonna go, instead of a 1/4 inch, I'm going with a, 5/16, okay? It's just gonna go in the chuck here. Okay, and it should have like a triangle smooth out shaft for this kind of truck. Exactly. All right. Good ones have smooth out sides. The cheap ones are just solid round, and they always end up spinning when they get compression. All right, so we got that. We got this. Let's drill some holes. There we are. I'm just gonna get all these started in case the tip gets compromised. All right. We're gonna add a little bit of water. We're gonna try to keep it cool. Remember, slow and cool makes the bit last longer. The faster you go and the hotter it gets, the faster it wears out. So I've just added a little bit of water. We're gonna see if this helps keep it cool down. It's getting awfully hot. Woo! You can smell it too. Wow. Look at that, bubbling. There it is. All right, next. Yeah, you see the bit starting to burn? We only got three holes drilled out of this. That's about all you're ever going to expect to get. 3 holes. That was the goal. No chip tile. So before we put this collar on, we're going to do as much of this plumbing as we can. We turned the water off at the street. We drained the lines, but this is the lowest fixture in the house right now. So it is guaranteed to leak. Good news. There's a hole in the floor. So hopefully it won't leak too bad. And it'll just go right down the hole. And I got a sponge here to make that of no consequence. That's awesome. Okay, now I'm gonna line these up. Okay. This all has to be anchored first. What we do is we take turns after the fact. We have to connect these water lines and then push them down into the floor. It seems like an almost impossible task, to be honest with you, but let's just give this a shot. Okay. Well, my attempt to have these lines on with the cold water marked, it was ingenious, but it failed because I didn't pull it all the way out of the thin set. But that's fine. That's my hot, that's my cold. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Wow. Okay. That's it, we're not going any further. Last thing I need to do is go and smash the tile in half under compression here. We got our hot and cold water lines. Now, they don't have it marked hot or cold. Yes, they do, and here's how we're gonna tell. When I see a fixture like this, I expect hot and cold to come in like this. Hot should be on the left, okay? But when you take a look at the bottom, there's a little symbol here. Hot is one side, cold is the other. Okay, so we can correspond these holes with those 2 dots. So hot's on my left this way, but it's on the top this way. Make sense? And really all we do is insert it and then find that thread, that sweet spot. There we go. And we thread that in until we get it a little finger snug. Okay. And then it's not down here is designed. You can then put a little bit of torque. Make sure you've engaged that gasket really firmly. I mean, the gasket's pretty thin, right? But once you get that machine thread, you can engage this first ring really nice and tight and flatten it out. And the second one's just there for backup. Same thing. Just 1/4 turn, not too much. You don't want to flatten to the point where you crack it and break it, okay? Now, match up the male and female threads. Put Put those pipes in your tube. Backwards till we feel it click. And we should have it so we have our plumbing exposed still. This is where it's nice to have an extra pair of hands, because now I literally, wow, this is nuts. Okay. I'm having a hard time seeing the end from the beginning here, and it's freaking me out. Again, that's on a gasket. It should be able to be pushed down now. Oh, happy spot. Bring the other one up. Not the easiest system, like I said. But it sure was the right price, eh? Thank God there's gaskets. So once I get it tightened up, I don't have to over-tighten it too much. The secret here is to put this on first before you connect your water lines. Yeah. Back to the drawing board. Okay. Somebody was out there watching this, and you're going to be in the comment section going, what about that? You betcha, what about that? Listen, these things happen. When you're DIYing your own renos, you don't have 300 of these installations in your back pocket. Yeah, I even read the instructions. You think I remembered it? All right, all that to do this. Okay. So this is where we get to the tricky part, guys. We got our water lines on. I got a good situation happening here. I have a meter, so if there's water moving through the line, the meter dial changes. So after I close all this up, we can confirm whether or not it got a good seal, again, when we're finished. So remember that I have a neck here that's got 2 water lines in it. Each of them have been threaded into gasket seal under compression. I got the water lines at the bottom under compression, and I have 2 threads here that I've got to now engage. So I'm going to try to push all that plumbing back into the floor. Okay, in order to do that, that one out of the way, there we go. Okay. Okay, and I have to thread this. Now what's happening here, as I turn this is turning too. So then I have to unscrew it to then screw it. Does that make sense? Because these 2 water lines, I don't want to get them twisting up too much. Which one's tightening down? Wait a second, I got my math backwards here. I gotta go this way. Let me just get my head in. That one's going this way. This one tightens the same direction. I just don't see how the hell that's gonna work. This is the craziest damn installation I've ever heard of in my life. They honestly can't expect us to make those connections in that tiny little space underneath that. If this is clockwise, I don't want to be twisting the lines. And that's exactly what happens when I start twisting this. It twists the lines. Right? So I have to go this way. to then thread. Okay. And I'm supposed to expect that this thing here will now thread and not cross those lines up. This is insane. Just look at how many threads I'm out of this tower now. But it's cheap. All right. So just to be clear, my option, my only option is to tighten everything in place and then make that water connection on both of those lines in this 3/4 of an inch plumbing. Or crawl in underneath the trailer and do it from underneath. This is the dumbest installation I've ever thought about. I wish I read the instructions before I move forward with this. This will be a picture that I sent home to the wife so she thinks I'm getting everything done. Let me show you the one other feature about this thing before I go crawl into the trailer, because there's just no way that I can do that on camera, guys. I'm just sorry. I'm gonna have to, but I can't do it on camera. But I will show you this. This is a metal supply line hose, okay? It's not plastic, it does not kink. This is a good quality hose. Lousy engineering on this product, but a good quality hose, okay? Comes with these little caps on them. You gotta get these stuff off of here. They both have washers. One of them will have this saddle. It's kind of like a V shape a little bit, so it sits in, okay? And this one is gonna be designed to connect to the water supply line, which will be over here. Then you can connect this one. Now these gaskets are really good. They engage easily enough. Okay, so then I have two functions here. One is for the tub, or you can take this out, and one is for your hand. I'm just filling up my P-trap now because we don't want to let the sewer gases come into the house. Okay, there we go. Now this is going to drip forever in a day, isn't it? I turn it off. How long is that water going to come out? Till the line depressurizes, I guess. So realize you're going to get some water coming out on your floor with this. All right, so if you use it, when you're done using it, just leave it hanging inside your tub until you've turned everything off and everything's drained out. All right, and that way you'll avoid putting puddles on your floor. It's cute, it's functional, but it's not stable. It's only on 2 or 3 threads right now, so I can't stabilize it until I get underneath, disconnect the plumbing, turn the water off, tighten all this up, get back underneath, reconnect all the plumbing. That'll be tomorrow. Okay, so of course the day after we have this problem, we can't thread it all together. The solution was made readily apparent because we took the time to identify the locations of the base. And because the water supply lines are connected, fixed 2 positions, and we have 2 things that are both going clockwise to come together, the only solution for tightening this all up is to actually remove the screws. There we go. Okay. Now I can lift this and rotate the top part without the water lines getting twisted until it's in the lock position. And then I can spin the bottom until they're in their lock position. And this will end up right here. Just like we originally planned. And then we'll just throw these screws right back down again. There was a lot of frustration. Sometimes working tired at the end of the day, you know, you just need a little bit of sleep. There we go. Perfect every time. All right, so now we got our bathtub installed. We got our water supply installed. Place is coming together. Love it when a plan comes together. Let's see how she drains. That's awesome. That's great drainage. So here we are, we're going to install our toilet now. We're going to follow best practices for toilet installation because this is the most common, how should we say, miserable excuse for installation procedures that happen in North America. There are millions, if not tens or hundreds of millions of toilets that are installed incorrectly every year just because people are changing the thickness of their floor due to remodeling and renovations, and they're not taking the time to do it properly. Here's my flange, screwed to the subfloor. You'd think that would be sufficient. There's nothing on the market that will seal a toilet to that flange with this height difference. Look at that. Okay, we're talking 3/4 of an inch. All right, so the solution is this, Teflon rings. Now I buy this kit. Put a link to in my Amazon distributor for this because they don't sell this at Home Depot everywhere. They do in Canada. I didn't see it down here. But these are rings that come with a gasket, okay, attached to them. So you can stack them and get a waterproof seal. All right, and the idea is the toilet bolts line up right there, okay? And all you gotta do is create a little compression. So we take a look at our hole marks, and I realize that screw and this screw are where these bolts are. So we're going to back those out. And we realize somebody installed it with these short-ass little screws. That is not going to help us at all. Okay. If they were longer, we would just reinstall those 2 screws here and here and would be good, but they're not. So the solution here is a combination of a few things. This is an extended wax ring, okay? See this? Extra thick, all right? Reinforced, which means it has the flange inside of it that directs to the hole, okay? And it comes with extra long bolts, and this is the key. So the way this works, if you're not familiar with it, is you have a wide slot, okay, and then it goes to a skinny slot. And if I'm the toilet looking at it like this, it's like a clock. 9 and 3 o'clock are where these bolts go. 9, wow, that's a lot of garbage in this hole. 9 and 3, right? Fantastic. Now we're going to take our 2 flanges, we're going to line these up with these holes and these holes, okay? Now the reason I'm using both is because my goal is to get this flush with the floor or just a little bit higher. Okay, see how there's a gap here now? All right, that's the goal. Now to make this perfect, I actually want to install a couple of screws. So, I'm going to pre-drill the Teflon ring next to and on the outside of the ring. So I'm on the outside of the gasket's on the inside. That's 3, okay? That's 3. There we go. 3 locations. Using stainless steel screws. These are 2-inch. And it puts those gaskets under compression. All right. So now I got 3 locations where the gasket's under compression. I'm pretty much flush with the floor. Might be just a hair under, but that's why I buy the extra thick, okay? Because this solves all these problems. Makes them all go away. Now, before I put my wax in, I gotta get rid of my coffee cup. That's been sealing up that hole for the last couple months. All right, now this still has the ability to move around, okay? There's no right or wrong installation here. So we're gonna just line it up on the middle, And then we're going to take out these little plastic things here, which are a godsend. So what these do, okay, they lock that in a perpendicular position. All right. So now when I come over and I hover my toilet over top, I got bolts standing straight up instead of all on the side. Okay? This is a lot easier to get this installation done now. Let's get rid of our garbage. We'll grab the toilet bowl and go sit that in place. I wanted to just bring your attention to the toilet first. Here's your traditional bowl with a P-trap in it, okay? And the water comes this way and then goes through the hole. There's a bridge here and there's a bridge here. The ProFlow toilet, it's comfort height, so it's already a little bit higher. Okay, it's two-piece, it's easy to install as a one person. It looks like a toilet. It acts like a toilet, but the cool thing about this is, it's a 1.2 gallon flush. It's really low water. And what it has is an instant siphon. So the water doesn't just come out at one spot, it comes out all around here, all shooting on an angle, okay? So when you flush it, it's instantly turning and it just sucks everything right out of there. It also has one of the largest trap sizes in the market. And it's also the most affordable because no one's ever heard of it. This is what we call a builder toilet. This is an amazing toilet. You can get it at Ferguson in the United States, Wolseley in Canada. If you have an account, it's around the 150, 160 mark, okay? Really, really effective. It's my favorite. I've been using it for years. When it comes to toilets, I would rather not spend $400 to $500 just to have something that looks sexy. I want to spend my money on performance, because if it flushes, it's a good toilet. If it has smooth sides and looks sexy, but you can't tighten it to the floor, it's not a good toilet. Now, here we go. We are almost ready to tighten this on, but before we go any further, we got to get the rest of the kit, because there are little caps that go on this that we want to retrieve before we go any further here. There's the rest of the goods. Lovely. So in here we have the gasket for the tank and our toilet caps. We're going to need those. These bolts to connect the tank to the bowl. We'll need those. But first thing I want to do before I install the bowl is get this attached to the ground. Okay? I'll show you on this side the process and then we'll be okay. Now, if you're not familiar with it, these gaskets are like a little top hat, okay? And when you put the top on, it literally snaps into place, okay? So the secret here is to put this on, then you put the silver ring, and then you put the nut. And you put that under compression. You'll see that there's a little notch here. You can take any hacksaw on the market and you can cut that down. It's just a soft brass, it's not a big deal. It's designed for compression up and down, not lateral strength left and right. The secret to a good toilet install, honestly, it's having a flat floor, okay? Now, this one has a minor bit of wiggle, and in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to eliminate wiggle for life. Now, you hear that? When you start hearing noises from your tile, you know you're tightening too much. Okay, so we tighten both sides. What we're doing now is we're compressing the wax in place and making sure we have a nice positive seal between the bowl and our flange. There we go. And it shouldn't move, okay? If at this point you have any movement, I'm going to recommend that you go to the next step, which is how I teach people how to waterproof their bathroom. Because you don't want to just use a little bit of silicone here. Because silicone has got expansion capacity and compression capacity. And it won't it won't act like a shim to your toilet, okay? So at this point, if you have any movement because you have smaller tile or a grout deviation, take a little bit of your leftover grout, mix it up, okay? And just spread a thin amount around your toilet and let it dry before you install the rest of your toilet. Once that grout dries, you can then add a silicone bead around the outside to keep the water out, but now the grout acts like a shim, like a giant concrete shim to keep your toilet from moving. If you have a toilet that moves at all, you have a toilet that leaks, okay? Like, if it moves, it leaks. That's all you need to know, all right? So the toilet that doesn't move, doesn't leak, will be good, all right? But if it's moving at all, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, here's our tank. Here's our gasket. We want that stretched right over the outside till the sides are in contact with the tank, okay? Now we're ready to stick this sucker in place. There we go. Piece of cake. Now, here's our brass bolts with a rubber gasket. They'll drop right down inside. This connects one to the next. Our goal now is to compress that with the nut and the washer from the other side and try to make this nice and level. And the way we do this is you take your nut, you place the washer on top, you hold the bolt in place, because you're not going to be able to see this in a lot of cases, and you just fumble around until you feel the washer go over that. And you can tighten it by your one finger. If you have to force or use a wrench, you're cross-threaded, okay? Remember, brass fittings are exact. They don't need a lot of help. All right, and if you're cross-threaded, you'll know. You won't even get one full turn on it. Just back it out, start it again. The easiest way to avoid cross-threading is to go in reverse until you feel it click in place. All right, fantastic. Now, in order to finish this process, we need a screwdriver, or you can stick your knife there in that big slot, and you finish tightening the bolts. And the goal is, when you put that there, you want to be pushing down, because you're trying to compress that gasket, and the main gasket, so that nothing's going to leak. You can do that by holding the bolt with the nut from moving, and then just turning the screw as well. Remember, this isn't something that you need to over tighten. Once you've got good contact with your gasket, come on, baby. You're pushing down and then turning, you should be just fine. Check for level. Okay, here we go. Yep, this whole room's out of level. That is actually a good seal. All right, now we got to cut these bolts and put our caps on. Perfect. About 6 months ago I started this renovation. It takes forever on camera, guys. And I hid this little shutoff valve in a closet in the hallway. I forgot I even put it there until just recently. I'm ever glad I found it. And put the handle back on. Make sure this is turned off. Before we go to connect the faucet, the toilet riser. Okay. Somehow I gotta get in here with 2 hands. Now this is just a quick note. This is the proper way to use pliers, okay? See this head comes around like this? That provides you lots of torque. So you don't have to hold this together with a lot of strength. There we go. Once we get it going, it should come off no problem. Knowing me, I use thread sealer, so it's nice and greasy. Oh yeah, lots of that there. Okay. I'll actually clean some of that out while I'm here. Now, here's the toilet riser, 16 inches, okay? So it goes from the ground to the toilet, no problem, right? So what I like to do is put it on here first. Now down here in Florida, you guys do things different than we do in Canada. Up in Canada, we have a 3/8 and then your regular toilet attachment, okay? You have a 3/8 compression to valve, which is this connection down here, all right? And it's a 7/8 fill to toilet. But you also have a 1/2 inch compression to valve, which is a much bigger size. I'm not sure why. You have 2 different supplies down here, but you do. And it's awfully confusing for me because I just, whoa, there's a toilet riser, grabbed it. There's a faucet riser, grab it. Ah, I had to learn the hard way. All right, now we're on, really good. And there's a gasket in there. I'll show you this end. They all come with a built-in gasket. So you're not relying on that to be a compression fitting as much as you're compressing the gasket, okay? So this is like really basic. You bend it, twist it, and then install it. Okay, it's always going to be longer than what you need. You want to not kink the line. So I'm holding the line with my 2 fingers down here while I'm twisting the cap on. Now I'm getting close, I'm getting compression in there. Finished. All right, now we're gonna check to see if I got any leaks. I'm looking here, I'm looking here. I'm checking this bolt and the same bolt on the other side. Those are the 4 places that this can leak. And that's on the water supply line of things. So no leaking here so far. I'm gonna open this up to full because there's a second gasket inside this valve. I want to engage it in the full open position. Make sure that I don't get a drip developing here as well. Okay, so there's 5 different spots here where this can leak. And you want to manage this right out of the gate. Remember, this is hydrostatic pressure building up in here. Okay, so those 2 little washers in the bottom of the tank, when the tank is full, there's a lot of pressure there. And so they are more common to drip than anything else. Okay. Because the water supply usually runs around 50, 60 psi. But hydrostatic pressure is 50 psi per inch. So you put a 12 inches in there, you get a fair amount of water pressure on that molecule. Okay, nothing's happening. My tank doesn't wobble. My toilet doesn't wobble. I'm in great shape. Now, if your toilet wobbles, the recommendation that I give people is take a little bit of your grout and grout your toilet to the floor, okay? And what you want to do is get right underneath this edge. Fill that dark gap. It doesn't take much, okay? Just a little bit in there, and that becomes a shim when it's dry. Then you can come back afterwards and you can do your silicone work. Next step is when you've got your water supply finished through your finished flooring, take a good quality adhesive sealant. Loctite makes one. You could use silicone, but it's not as good as these advanced sealants. Fix is another great sealant, okay? And you fill in around your water supply protrusions. Use the nozzle to really make sure you got good contact. Okay? Come at it from a couple different sides. And don't worry about making a mess. because when we're all said and done, we're going to stick on one of these plates, okay? Now, this is plastic. It tears apart, okay? And so then you can just wrap it around your pipe, like so. Now, this one's a little oversized, but you get the idea. And we can bury our water supply line right down to it. That's a pretty decent look for an old water supply line. All right. All right, so let's just do a quick recap. Our subfloor is waterproof. Where the subfloor meets the wall is waterproof with the Curdy band. Our tile work is silicone to the floor at the edge. Our tub is waterproof because the drain itself was waterproof sealed to our underlayment. The only other areas where we have concern are protrusions through the floor, which we just showed you, and then the toilet. Now, part of this waterproofing system for a toilet is that we're using a toilet that has 1.2 gallons of water. That's where the water sits. All right, now when you flush this thing, it has an instant siphon, gone, 1.2 gallon flush. The bowl holds 3 gallons of water. That means that you've got 3 attempts, if you plug it, to fix your plug before it'll even overflow. That is a great protection. So going with a 1.2 gallon tank versus the standard 3 to 5 gets you that performance. Okay, now, in addition, there's other sources of water. What if the sink backs up, okay, onto the floor? What if the tub is ignored while it's being filled? I know it has an overflow, but in a lot of cases that overflow is not removing the water as fast as it's coming in. So you might get a situation where you're getting a little bit of water coming over the edge before you realize it. And you'll hear that noise before you remember that you're filling your tub. Right, or one of the kids walks in and plays in the water and then forgets to turn it off. Lord, if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your toilet is attached to the flange with a wax ring. And it should be sitting flush on the ground. If it's not, grout it in, and then you can seal it with white silicone or clear silicone. I prefer the clear, because there's no such thing as a pure white toilet anymore. And as soon as you put white on this, you're gonna have the tile white, the toilet white, and the silicone white. It looks like hell. So here's what I prefer to do. Now we're not using a whole lot here. Just enough to seal the gap from the toilet to the floor. And I like to use clear silicone because the translucent turns yellow. The clear will not. Okay, now you can take a rag afterwards and you can clean really close the edge of the toilet and take the excess off the floor. I like to work with a piece of cardboard around me so I can clean it up as I go. Come around the back. Now there is a debate over whether or not you should silicone your toilet to the floor, which is amazing to me. In apartment buildings, it's part of the building code because there's a hole in the concrete in order to run your plumbing. And the only way to make sure water doesn't go from one unit to the next is to seal the toilet to the floor. Well, you can incorporate that same technology to residential properties and avoid the possibility of any kind of localized flooding in a bathroom to reach another part of the house as well. Okay. Is it necessary? Is it part of the code in residential homes? No, it's not part of the code in residential homes. It's just part of good common sense. Okay. There we go. Well, there you have it, guys. As you can see, even a small space can be beautiful. And you don't have to take out a loan to get a nice renovation when you do it yourself. If you want to see how I built this custom shower from start to finish, click the link on the screen. Thanks for watching, and cheers till next time.